Pacific Division. I'm International Master David Pruce, and with me to commentate on today's first round playoff matches is Alex Yermolinsky.
That's right. Hi, guys. Well, hi, David. Good to be back. Well, I'm very excited. Well, today's playoff was extremely captivating, and obviously, presence of Magnus Carlsen set the tone.
Yeah,
And I want to point out how great the London teams did today. They
yeah,
both won.
yeah.
That's amazing.
It
Yeah.
was pretty exciting. They were also behind. It looked like they had no chance to win, and then they turned around a bunch of games in the fourth round and just barely won.
Right. Yeah. I was watching that a bit, so great. But the
Yeah,
Pacific Division, our
but the
division is
Pacific
the
Division,
strongest.
aka the strongest.
Yep.
All
Exactly.
right, here it comes, everybody. The best chess you'll ever see today. Um, and we have a match between the Dallas Destiny and the San Jose Hackers, and another match between the San Diego Surfers and the Rio Grande Ospreys. So
Which, by the way, the second match is has not started yet.
right,
Okay, so for now we have just Dallas versus San Jose and four interesting games. So,
yeah, and we are
w-
starting here
yeah,
with Grandmaster Jeffrey Xiong playing black here. Board one for the Dallas Destiny. He has not played that much this season. But here he is, Jeffrey Xiong, ELO 2647, already outdated. He's 30 points higher than that after a couple more good results.
right.
And he's neck and neck with Sam Shanklin for the last spot on the U.S. Olympiad team right now,
Mm.
or the fourth seat at the table with Caruana Nakamura and Wesley So. So that's who we're
Oh, so
watching
it's
right
actually
now
for the fourth seed.
for the fourth
So
seat. Yeah,
but there is five spots on the
that's right.
Olympic
One of
team.
them could be a reserve,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
suppose. Yeah.
Right.
All right, and so here he is playing black for the Destiny. He's only played one or two matches so far this season for Dallas, but now that the playoffs are on, hopefully he's available.
Well, he better be, because every team needs their best players.
Yeah,
I still kind of question the strategy by the Mumbai movers, not to play their best player in every game. I
yeah,
think it cost them.
yeah. Vidit Santosh not playing the first two rounds this morning against the Norway Gnomes, and the movers went down just barely.
Oh, yeah, but no, but here I think, at least for the Dallas team, I think they have their optimal lineup.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of the lineup of the San Jose Hackers? Do they have their best players? Obviously, they have Mamedyarov.
Pretty much. They are playing Mamedyarov today. They're also making a decision to play Naroditsky for 2 out of 4 games.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. I was surprised not to
So,
see Daniel.
so they've
Mhm.
got they've got two different lineups: one for games 1 and 2, and one for games 3 and 4. I can also show you guys sort of some quasi pairings up here. I know it's slightly cut off, but you can see that the first two rounds they're playing a lineup where their third and fourth boards are rated in the 2300s with 2 GMs on the top two boards. But then in rounds 3 and 4, they bring in a 2100 on board 4 and play 3 GMs, including their two highest rated GMs, bringing Naroditsky in.
So you think the strategy is somehow related to colors, black and white, or?
Either way,
or
each player is getting the same number of whites and blacks.
mm,
So there's two possible reasons for their strategy. One is that they want their players to be a little bit more rested by playing 2 games instead of 4. But the other might be that they really want the higher rated Naroditsky for the last 2 games when he plays against Rui Feng Li and Jeffrey Xiong. And in the
I see.
and in the previous rounds, they think that Izoria is good enough for playing against the third and fourth boards of Dallas, and that allows them to play a higher rated third and fourth boards to maybe get some draw upsets in the first couple rounds.
I think you nailed it. Izori with his experience, indeed. Well, this is not to say that he would necessarily lose to to Jeffrey or Rufeng, but
Right.
well, still, seems a better idea to put a younger player against those two guys because they're monsters.
Yeah.
They play so well.
So if that's their strategy, it would revolve around either fake Aleskerov, who we're seeing here playing white against Jeffrey, or international master Kesa Viswanatha. One of them scoring an upset, one or two draws in the first two rounds would be what the hackers are hoping for, I think, here.
Certainly. Well, speaking of Aleskerov, now he's technically speaking up a pawn.
Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey sacrificed that pawn on b5 that probably could not have been protected anyway. And
yeah, this pawn on b5 here, it was isolated, it was attacked by two pieces, and if it went forward as it did, it still got snacked.
Yeah. Obviously, there is one downside on playing b4, because I thought the black knight was headed out to c5. And currently, no, it's impossible. Although in return, the b4 pawn can be attacked. So I'm not sure exactly, what black's planning to do now.
Right.
But first he castled and he's waiting for white to make a move.
Yeah. If he'd played knight c5 earlier to go after the e pawn, then basically the move bishop b5 check was annoying. So.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why he went for b4 first.
h3, well, solid, and now queen b8 hits that pawn. Yeah, I expect white to play this bishop to d2 and knight to c2. That's what he's doing.
I thought Jeffrey might be preparing d5, but he did not play it here, instead playing rook c8.
Yeah, d5 would be interesting.
When he played queen b8, I thought that was maybe the dual purpose, to attack b4, but also prepare to play d5, e5, knight e4, and, have extra attackers on the e5 pawn.
Well, but maybe, I'm not sure he can do it now, because white will simply take on e4 and then take on d7. Although in reply, there will be move rook c7 possible.
Whoops, sorry, I mouse slipped this Alex's variation, everybody. Queen takes d7, hitting this piece, and now rook c7 maybe keeps black in the game by defending e7, and then you can take the knight.
Well, but but the line is
queen b5.
Not exactly clear to me, but no, maybe it's playable for black. Well, obviously he makes his light square bishop pretty strong, but if white somehow manages to take the game to the endgame, then it should be in good shape. But maybe Jeffrey is considering that move d5 now.
Yeah.
What else can white do in reply to d5? Is it just possible to take, but then just probably knight takes?
Yep.
And okay, d5 has just been played.
Okay. If the knight comes to d5, these c3 and b4 squares will both come under attack.
Yeah, and white probably would lose his pawn back, and then the advantage will be in black's hands because of the strong bishop on a8. And generally speaking, playing with this 4 against 3 against the passer, as long as the passer is not advanced, could be advantageous for the second player.
Looks like they're going for the messy line. And
well, yeah, knight e4, but I mean, what were the options? Go knight e8. I don't think that was attractive at all. So now they go for all that stuff, and I expect rook c7, and then maybe queen b5.
Yeah, I mean, does white have an alternative to queen d7 before we go full wild? I mean, if this knight moves, then yeah, he went for it.
He went for it. Now I'm thinking he would probably try to play queen b5, because black I think has to go rook b7. I don't really see anything else.
Yeah.
And after rook b7, at least the bishop is kind of funny on a8, but it's only temporary.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see follow-up, especially for white at that point.
Oh, line could go queen b5. It's been played. Now queen back to e2.
Yep.
At least he gets to take on f3 safely.
Right.
And black will play bishop takes b4.
He could also play rook takes b4 at that point.
Yeah, also possible. I don't know what's better, really. I don't. I mean, the bishop on c3 is kind of solid.
Right. It's defending these things.
So it's self-defended, protects b2 and e5. So maybe it makes sense to trade it. Well, particularly since after bishop b4, which was played. If white takes, then he already loses the b2 pawn by force.
Mm-hmm.
But he can go knight c4 and knight d6, and I mean, I think white is fine with the knight on d6 because he's not getting mated on g2 yet.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see. Bishop takes b4 has just been played already. So they're playing down all these moves. One thing to note is that Jeffrey was way down on time as they entered this. I mean, it was like 10 or 11 minutes against 5.5 minutes. So he really had to think pretty hard about how to handle this position. And then in this tactical sequence, he's made basically all pre-moves.
Yeah, well, he's certainly doing okay on the clock. And I think his position is reasonable. I don't think his teammates and the fans of his team, should have too much worry here. Of course, Jeffrey's very strong. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's still down a pawn, though. He still has to prove this position.
Yeah, I'm going through the entire. Now the second match just got started.
Uh-huh. Okay. And I'm going to scan over here. Ooh, Mamedyarov's game looks interesting to me. Actually, they all look pretty interesting. Whoa. Okay, let's flip around because a lot of other games look interesting.
No, Mamedyarov's position indeed is very interesting. Seemingly white has all the initiative in his hands. A strong knight on d5 and the battery on the long diagonal.
Yeah.
But black's position is without weaknesses.
Yeah. It's quite solid. Well,
actually, the white king is exposed.
Actually, Mamedyarov is black.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and of course, and Mamedyarov has some counter-attacking potential. When you open up your king like this against Mamedyarov, you're certainly taking chances.
In that context, I really like this move by white. When you don't have pawns on the second row, you really want to put your rooks on the second rank, I've found.
Yep. Yeah,
in this kind of position.
Not to mention, that continues that attack on the G file.
Right. Not to mention that it can help you go after G7, which is definitely the right thing to be going after.
Yeah. By the way, if you guys were wondering about knight f6 check, then black would take that knight and then play king h7, and he's safe with extra piece.
Like going for the checkmate on h8.
Yeah, no, it was not
defends
working.
It from the side. Yep. Okay, so as I was expecting, Mamedyarov chose to trade on d5 to get rid of that knight. And I think in this position, the key is that Mamedyarov needs to find a way into the game for his d6 bishop. Although I guess trying to shut down white's diagonal is a pretty good start as well.
Yeah, he played f6, and I think black is looking to play play on the e file.
So just leave the bishop as a blockader, put the rooks on the e file, and challenge white to counter him there.
But it starts with somewhat awkward move, rook e7, but maybe it's okay. Well, I'm thinking maybe the black queen should go behind the rook.
All right, I'm going to pop over here to some tactics because I think Ruifeng Li is engaged in tactical operations against Kesov. We've got this knight orphan. I'm going to take you guys back 2 moves to this critical position here after b4 by white. White's main plan in these positions is to play c5, just turning the d pawn into a passed pawn. And before he can do that, Ruifeng starts to make some threats. He comes with bishop e3. So he's trading white's dark squared bishop, which helps him get control of d4 and c5. And the tactic was bishop e3, knight e3, hitting the 2 rooks. And if queen e3... Oh, he already won. My goodness.
Well, he already won because of queen d1 check. I'm actually not sure if white had any defense.
C4.
Yeah.
Wow. He just couldn't get out of these tactics, huh? B takes on c4. If the knight takes, he loses this.
Yeah. The problem was always with that rook on d1. Well, he managed to remove the rook from d1, but the square...
but the square was still a problem.
He couldn't cover, yeah.
So once this bishop came to e3...
after this great move, bishop bishop e3, I don't see any defense actually.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what
He
was there to
he
play?
can't trade and bring the black knight to e3. If he plays c5, black can take it, for example, like takes, rook takes
And
c5.
rook takes, I guess.
And the queen's looking at d1 again. So if you think about it, I mean, in response to bishop e3, it was pretty logical to move the rook off of d1 and defend c2, and even that leaves him just losing to pawn takes pawn.
So I wonder, maybe the defensive move was actually king f1, but it's so difficult to play because you're not threatening to take on e3, you're actually making it even worse.
So after bishop e3 to play the move king f1, putting the last piece in line for this fork, huh?
No, well, yeah.
Now if you take on e3, black could even play queen takes c2 and really destroy.
Well, that is correct, but no, at least I'm able to recapture on c4 with the knight. Well, right. Which is it's still a kind of position that white is skirting disaster, or maybe he's gonna lose anyway.
Yeah, but we don't see the tactic immediately. Well, that's a nice first.
Tactics. Yeah, but anyway, it's in the books.
Nice first shot by Kesov.
Has been drawn.
First blood drawn. All right. Check in on this position that we haven't seen yet. Actually, I think Mamedyarov is going to win in a moment, so I'm going to go back to him. Because
I think there was a blunder involved, in White's play.
He's completely activated his rooks. Let's just quickly see how that happened. We had seen this position here around move 25, with White having this d5 pawn. Mamedyarov attacks it, and White just keeps trying to attack g7 as if this was a target he could get after, but no.
Yep.
I think that was the mistake, this focus on g7. And Mamedyarov just defends it with one piece, starts to attack the white king, and this is not going to take very long once he gets here. Rook d5, free pawn, rook to d3, coming to h3, queen g2 to stop it, queen h4, and he resigns, losing his queen.
No, stopping that was like stopping a tsunami wave, with your bare hands. No, forget it. Once that black pieces started flooding in. Well, let's go back to our game we started with, Aleskerov versus Jeffrey Sheng.
All right.
Well, still, White somehow manages to keep his extra pawn.
He's clung to it. And
it's still no mate on g2, I anticipate White to get mated at some moment on g2, but it's not happening yet.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey chose to go into the opposite colored bishop position, which to me says that he didn't find anything really attractive. This looks like a position that he's only trying to draw. I don't know. Do you think black has any winning chances?
No, well, he can play queen b7 next and then reply to f3, sacrifice his rook. But such sacrifices only can bring a draw most of the time.
You don't quite have enough to mate.
Because you can't win. Suppose White now plays this move bishop b4. No, I don't know how good that move is, but it's just a move that protects everything.
Random move, yeah.
Yeah, but instead came rook e3, so now it also makes sense because now he prepared to play f3.
Yeah, and he plays the same move that Mamedyarov played to really shut down Chris Toole's play in the other game we saw, right? Just put a pawn, defend it on this diagonal, dead in that bishop, and you should be in the game.
No, but now White has to play the only move, king f2.
Yeah.
No, which is fairly obvious. But...
Actually, you can also play king h1 or king h2 or something, and when black takes on e3, you play queen d8, queen a8.
Yeah, well, that was also possible, but he played king f2.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because there was this counterattack. And now White is pinned, but...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think king h1 was the safest. Just go straight towards that queen endgame with an a-pawn. You can't lose.
Yeah, because now bishop d5 is pretty good. Well, if White tries to unpin with king e2, then maybe he's moving the wrong direction with the king.
Oh, definitely the wrong direction.
So now, so he plays a4. So he's trying to Yeah, that makes sense, because if black takes that pawn, then the rooks are traded.
Okay,
Of
but
course, Jeffrey's trying for
that
more.
means he's gone in the wrong direction with king f2. I mean, I think this king f2 move is actually going to turn out to be the key mistake this game. Because, you know, once his kings come out, he's defending more and more pieces by bringing his king into worse and worse position.
Yeah, now things certainly went Jeffrey's way. Okay, so
Yeah.
his queen is now the bishop on d5 is very strong.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of cuts the white queen off from.
Yeah. And this rook on b2 is super strong, and this king is just in the wrong place. He's going to lose now, Aleskerov.
I think so.
Yeah, this is
Check
it. Look,
from
he has to keep going
h4.
further out because he has to keep defending this bishop. And then there could be a bishop check to try and chase him off.
Yeah, and then queen f2. I think the game is already over.
Yeah, it's already over.
The queen is coming to f2.
That's
and
it.
That's going to be decisive.
It didn't take long, did it?
No, certainly it did not. Yeah, one move that I call the only move, king f2, and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, somehow with this bishop, well, white found himself in big trouble. Okay, is it still possible to defend this queen? Some queen move, queen c3.
I assume not, but let's just check. Queen c3. Bishop to b3, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of hopeless.
And then something like king c1, rook c2.
Hopeless.
Yeah.
The pawns are falling. Yeah, he should resign now. Okay.
All right. So let's check in on the game we haven't really seen so much of while we wait for
Holt Izore
for the resignation. And this is our most even match of the first round. And Holt seems to have a very comfortable position. Very comfortable.
Well, he has double pawns.
He has double pawns, but he has the easier job of making a pass pawn. Is this not good for white?
Well, I don't know. Well, probably good enough for a draw, but black played b5. So he gives white a choice to take on b5 or stay put. Now, if he takes on b5, then queen d2 check is going to win. I assume the c3 pawn. And then maybe black figures that the c pawn is going to be a stronger passer. No, instead, well, queen d5 was played. Centralization.
Yeah.
Okay, so the purpose of this is to keep the black queen from going away from the f7 pawn.
Yeah, and as we said, this game is already over. In fact, the exact line that we said with the rook and bishop trading for the queen on c2 and black taking on g2 and then white resigning.
Yep.
So, I mean, Aleskerov got a very good opening. He just made one crucial error when he brought his king out.
That's true.
And that was all Jeffrey needed to start checkmating in just a few moves. So back to this endgame. And now I'm noticing that Conrad has 13 seconds against 3 minutes. Is black preparing queen e5? He must be.
No, queen e5 was... Yeah, queen e5. Queen e5 was played, and now...
How do you like b4?
b4 is excellent.
Excellent.
But queen d3. So now the problem for black is how to approach with the queen.
Yeah.
If he goes d5 d4, maybe white is thinking of playing f4.
f4 to decoy this queen and get in on something.
And get c3, but I assume c3 is the most dangerous one.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is all about the c3 pawn. Izorius kind of put all his hopes into that pawn.
And then there are some interesting lines. Suppose there is d5, f4, queen c7. Queen c7. So I give up d5, and I hope to go c2. And can I cover my king from the checks?
From like queen a5 checks? Or
yeah, from all sorts of checks. They're going to be all over the place. It is hard to tell, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I had a plan.
I
For
don't see
example,
where
queen
you hide.
a5 check.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, queen a5 check, I will go the other way. King c6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a different move, a4.
Yeah.
Okay, well, also.
This is the move that popped into my head. But may well be a bad idea.
No, it's all gonna come down to this.
Queen d4? Wow, he doesn't even play queen d4.
No, well, he's threatening something. b6.
Right.
Is black forced to take?
Kind of, because I think if black goes for queen c5, the thing is that white can play b6, king a8, and then queen to h7. And suddenly the white queen finds another way to get at the black king. So, yeah, so they trade these pawns. He comes back to c7. I think it's a draw.
Well, he just gave his pawn with b6.
Yeah.
Is he getting something? No, he's getting nothing. Why is that a draw?
Random. Maybe he was just opening another file to have more places to check from.
Well, doesn't matter because I think Holt lost on time.
Oh, didn't have enough time for it. Wow.
No, well, his position was still worse.
Uh-huh.
Certainly,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
tight first match. Good endgame played by Azoria. That was pretty tricky, that queen endgame.
Yeah, Zoria, well, he has good endgame skills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe understatement, maybe great endgame skills.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go to other match. And in that match, which is now in the right there, in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The players already spent about half of their time, and I'm looking at most guys, with about 6 or 7 minutes left.
Yep.
And we have, of course, the San Diego Surfers going against Rio Grande Ospreys. And
Yep.
in that match, first game I want to look at is the leader of the San Diego team, Grandmaster Alexei Dreev, has the black pieces and somewhat unusual opening for him.
Yeah.
Some kind of a modern. Well, Dreev usually a model of consistency with his Caro-Kann.
Yeah, this position
French.
is
Yeah.
This looks like something that Gawain Jones would play, not Alexei Dreev.
Exactly. I guess he feels that he has to play sharper and against the lower rated player Joshua Ruiz.
If you're really consistent about your openings and you only play the Caro-Kann, maybe he would fear that Ruiz has been prepared by his GM teammates. But yeah, double B pawns, weak light squares. This is weird.
Yeah, Dreev also used to play some classical Sicilian, allowing the Richter Rauser attack, and reply to that with the sharp bishop d7 rook c8 line.
Okay.
Oh,
that can be a good choice.
Well,
if you really want to win.
This position is sharp nonetheless. Obviously, white has the light squares, but it's not clear where the white king is going to be.
Right.
I think it's somewhat easier to play with black, at least now. Just take on e4, put the knight on f5, or knight f5 right away.
Defending d6.
Yep.
I also kind of assumed he just had to take on e4, but anytime you can avoid trading and let your opponent trade, that's always better.
Yeah. And another game featuring a top player now for the other team is Joshua Sheng going against Andrei Stukopin. Stukopin is the leader of the Rio Grande team.
Yeah.
But Joshua Sheng, we know this guy already. He made a statement or two in previous rounds.
Yeah, this was the game. This was the game that I wanted to go to. I mean, he played the correct bishop opening here with bishop f4 on move 3, and then he plays f3. This is a style of opening that I've played for a long time. But this move on move 7, bishop h6, is a really bad move. I've seen other people make this mistake when they play this opening as white. It's not so important to trade dark squared bishops that you want to waste time playing bishop h6. You need to play moves like e4 or g4 or h4.
I see. Because the bishop was stopping e5, right?
The bishop's helping you control e5, and also it's just a waste of a move, right? Like, e4 adds a lot of pressure to the center. h4, h5 creates mating threats. g4 gives you the option of g5 chasing their knight to control d5 for white. So I mean, what you need to fight against is you need to have some. You need to either control the center or attack on the king side, or some combination of both. And you don't have time to go trading these dark squared bishops yet. And then after g4, you see black just plays e5, and immediately it looks like black's position's better at move 10. But Joshua tries to fight back by attacking d5. And
Yeah.
it's still kind of messy, but the problem is, I just don't trust this white kingside pieces.
Well, yeah, they need to come out pronto because, well, the pawn on f4 is going to be exposed to attack. Well, it's already attacked by the knight and only protected by the queen. f4 goes, then g5 can go as well. So it is going to be tactical. Maybe white is hoping to use that long diagonal with some queen d4 check. But truth to tell, f6 is protected. That knight on h5 should not be underestimated. It's arguably black's best piece now.
It's pretty good. It's defending two weaknesses to defend the king, and it's eyeing this f pawn, which can help collapse white's position.
Now it's interesting. So what to play now? I mean, one move would be knight g4, of course.
Yeah, Stukopin's putting in some serious time. The obvious move is knight to g4, getting your eyes on e3 and f2. Presumably the only move he'd be worried about would be knight d5, covering e3 square.
Yeah, and then then there is a problem because white is looking to play queen c3 check, and then knight f6 check, winning the queen.
So if you play like bishop e6, continuing to fight for d5 and e3.
Yeah, then you walk into the
queen
stuff.
c3.
Or bishop f5, all the same. So instead, knight c6 was played, which I assume threatens d4.
So he must have felt that position after knight d5 wasn't quite doing what he wanted.
Yeah, but after knight c6, what's the difference? What if white takes? And isn't queen c3 still a threat? He actually took on d5. Extra pawn for Joshua Sheng.
Yeah. Maybe he's planning to play queen a5? But that sacks the whole exchange as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, looking for compensation down a pawn, but...
And an exchange, because I'm allowing knight c7.
Knight c7 over there. No,
this can't be, right? It won't work.
No, it can't be.
So, queen c3, I think we have to consider that to be some kind of a threat. What about bishop g4, Alex?
Okay, queen c3 nonetheless.
Queen c3, king g8.
No, I'll check.
Knight c7, knight f6, rook d8, rook a d8.
No, threatening mate, so I would have to play. What do you have? Your knight on f6 is hanging, but you're threatening mate on d1.
Yeah, and it looks like you're going to play bishop e2 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something, try to trade more pieces. And queen's a queen, and the pawn's a pawn. Well, that's going to be a little unnerving for white, but I think white should be able to defend his king.
Yeah, also the move bishop d3 might be playable. That might be an
so
important
bishop
resource
e6 was played, which is...
So there's still some version of queen c3 available, right?
Yeah, but what is prepared against queen c3? What is it?
I don't know. Let's find it. F6, queen c3.
F6.
King g8, maybe.
King g8. Knight f6 check. Knight takes.
Knight takes.
I take on d8. Rook takes.
Rook takes.
Okay, now if I take the knight now, then black has this move bishop d5.
Right, and then knight f3. And you can trade on f3, and black can't take back. White can't take back because of rook e1 mate.
And also mate on d1 is threatening.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Okay, so we can't take the knight on f6. But still.
That is true.
But still. Black has a rook and a knight, and you play like bishop d3, knight d5. I mean, my feeling is it should be okay for black, these positions down at queen.
It's entirely possible that there's great activity of all pieces, and white is undeveloped. So, for example, if white in that position, critical position, after winning the queen, we already I guess we already established that it's not good to take the knight on f6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's. I mean, I can give up the rook on h1, but that's rather complicated. This whole thing is. Anyway, suppose I don't take the knight on f6 and I just move my bishop to g2.
Yep. Stopping
Then
knight
it's
e4
gonna
and
be
knight
knight
d5 at the
d5.
same time.
Knight d5 and then capture on f4.
On knight d5, he probably trades it off and then plays knight f3.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Still, white is significant material ahead. But instead came c4. I don't know. Well, unless we both blundered something, which I doubt in such simple line, white just neglects the opportunity to win the opponent's queen and instead plays some random move c4. I don't think it's going to work out very well.
But I think those queen c3 lines are pretty complicated. I mean, he might have seen it and just felt like it was messy.
Well, yeah, but messy is good. It means that you have a chance against higher-rated player to do something.
That's true.
You know, an attempt to keep things quiet, you know, can often backfire. Besides, how quiet is it going to be? White is still undeveloped.
So in this position, by the way, Alex, he plays knight e7 instantly. He could have played rook c8. I noticed.
He probably figured, you know, king b1 and anyway.
Yeah. But he goes knight e7 immediately.
He's looking to bring this knight to f5. And also he's thinking of queen d6 to blockade and attack f4. Yes, white is up a pawn, but no, it's just a pawn.
Yeah.
How to position the white pieces? I mean, obviously d6 is attractive, but I don't know if it's the right move.
d6, knight f5, d7, right? At least at least control the c file, and you know, if you're going to lose that pawn, it's going to cost black something. That seems right to me, Alex.
I think I would go d6 now.
Even though my attention is drawn to these pieces that haven't developed.
He plays bishop b5. Also interesting.
Okay. Maybe
also
still
interesting. Not a bad move.
Maybe still the idea with the d pawn. But first, send this rook off of the e file. Yeah. So it can't go to e7.
Or e6 d6, which was another possibility. Yeah, bishop b5 I like. No, I think it's a good move. All right. Well, it's about that game. And now, what else do we have? Okay, Dreev's game. Black is building up pressure on the king's side, but I think white's defending very well. And the position remains roughly balanced, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And now the last move played by Joshua Ruiz was rook to a3. If you could show that. So he intends to play rook b3 and start making some gains on the queen side.
Okay, he wants to finally move some attention to the doubled pawns.
Yeah. Well, he certainly took his time protecting the king. That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, in reply to rook b3, there's always possible to play rook c4, so it doesn't win anything right away.
Black could also...
Dreev is still fine.
Dreev could also play bishop d8 here, plausibly, looking at the a-pawn, and that also probably deals with rook b3.
Well, he preferred to play rook c4 immediately. Okay, also possible. There's nothing wrong with this move.
Yeah. Oh, Rio Grande has scored their first point over here. Michael Brown has resigned against Vladimir Belosh after this move h3.
I mean, he was... I mean, what is going on there? Okay, White is like totally... looks totally winning on the queen side, but before the move h3...
He's got an extra knight and 2 passed pawns.
But backtrack just one move.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful tactic from Belos, who played rook b1. sacrificed the whole rook to deflect the white rook from attacking his queen.
To get
and
one
make
extra
time for
tempo
H3.
here to play this h3 move.
No, this is a strike and move rook b1.
Yeah.
That is really something.
And then he's got checkmate if white takes the h-pawn, like this. And
No, but it took this great move rook b1 to set up this whole thing.
And if white plays rook to g1 to defend g2, he has bishop c5, bishop to e3, I think.
Bishop e3, yeah.
Threatening checkmate.
Same as going to be the answer to bishop f1.
Exactly.
Bishop e3. So that's just tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous tactical play from the Rio Grande player.
Oh, and they've scored another point.
Yeah.
On the board 2 versus 3 matchup, they've just scored another point as Keaton
Vasquez won.
Resigns here. Looks like I mean white
Looks
just
like
got
he was beaten. Keaton came out of the opening.
Yeah.
And, if you look at the position after move 20, when white plays this textbook breakthrough e5, that it does not look pretty for black. He's got the 2 bishops and the extra pawn, but development is more important than anything.
Yeah, the knights are just running circles around the bishops here.
And then he was able to complete his development, and even keep his extra pawn, and even kept b2 pawn under attack. But one problem was he couldn't get his queen into play.
Yeah.
And white immediately switched over to the c file. And I think
gets a rook to the 7th, everything so active, and wins easily.
And then he played a nice tactic, knight takes f5 on move 28. This looks like a great game by Vasquez, honestly.
It looks like Joshua has won Stukopen's queen anyway here, and at a much more bargain price. And Stukopen has 3 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, if he takes on f5, there's rook g1, and he resigns.
Well, this was a great game by Sheng.
Great
Sheng
game.
Is this
very?
I don't know if I had to. I understand we have Mamedyarov and Wesley So and all that, but if I had to call one name, there, the guy who made tremendous impact, on the tournament that helped his team a lot, that would be Joshua Sheng.
Yeah. I finally saw him at a tournament.
Win against much higher rated player. Excellent.
I played a tournament last week, Alex, and Joshua Sheng was there. So excitedly, I ran to look at his board to see him playing in person for the first time. And he was down like 3 pieces with his king getting mated in the center. And that was it. End of the story. He lost a game. I don't know. To a normal person, not a GM.
Well, maybe he's focusing too much, on the playing for the team, which is good.
Yeah. Okay, so our last game still going is Dreev. And thanks to Joshua Sheng, his surfers are only down 1 point. But he's down a past B pawn that looks pretty significant.
Yeah, but he attacks it now. Well,
if he couldn't play queen f6 there, he's... Let's see, he's only down 1 pawn, but that's a strong pawn. White's bishop is bad. Maybe black can hold it. And they have about 10 seconds each.
White's bishop on e4, yeah, it's bad in the sense of it's not helping the b pawn. Well, and he moves that bishop away. Somehow I don't like this move.
No?
Bishop c2. The bishop was protecting the pawn on f3. But he got f4.
Black got active now.
Black got active. There is a pin and b6 is gone. Advantage all blacks here.
Oh, I'm surprised he took with the queen. I thought he wanted to keep the second row thing going. But okay, here he is. Now black's much better suddenly.
Yeah, they play in just in seconds. And okay, nice counter-attack, rook b2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't even really want to play h5. Even if you could take on g6, queen h6 would be strong. This should be over in a moment. Knight f3, maybe knight d4.
Not quite sure where is the win.
Rook c2.
Knight d4. No, allows some kind of centralize your queen. Oh, that queen f2. But it allows queen h1.
Queen h1.
It was a nice
And
one.
he's
He had
got
to
it.
go queen e4.
Yep.
Queen e4 would have kept the game going.
Yeah, I think black was winning no matter what at this point.
Probably, yeah. So the San Diego Surfers, after losing first 2 games,
Yeah.
well, they were able to. I think they should be able to win.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Rook to d6 here, for example.
Dreev's technique we trust. Go king h1.
Yeah.
Get mated. He went.
All right.
Okay, he didn't go anywhere. Okay.
He should go to
So
king
this,
f1, and if black takes the pawn on d7, go for a draw with the rook sacks.
Yeah, but that rook takes this on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that game is in the books. In the meantime, we have the second round of our match between Dallas and San Jose already underway, and Mamedyarov. Mamedyarov white against Conrad Holt.
So everything looking equal, 2-2 here. And Alex, yep. I was watching basically all day, and no team has scored more than 9 points today. So every single match has basically come down to an inch at the end.
Right. Well, that begs a question. Who holds the tie breaks in our divisional players?
Yes, an important question. I believe, I'm just going to say this. I know for sure that Dallas has the tiebreak lead against San Jose Hackers. And then I think the San Diego Surfers have the tiebreak edge against Rio Grande. So I think that both Dallas and San Diego advance on an 8-8 tie.
Okay. I'm double checking.
You double checking me. All right. While Alex looks up the standings for sure, I'm going to count how many pawns Conrad Holt has. He has the same number of pawns, exact same number of pawns as Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. I was a little bit surprised he didn't take on d5, but I'm just getting oriented to this position.
All right, confirm. Dallas and San Diego have the tie breaks.
And white had just played d5, so what is defending this pawn on d5? It's a mystery.
Well, bishop c5 was the answer. So
yeah, but I don't know what was defending Mamedyarov's pawn on d5. I mean, his queen on c2
knight f5 always good enough to...
There we go.
Yeah, and then whatever.
That's why we've got you, Alex.
No, that's why we had Garry Kasparov, who famously said, when I put my knight on f5, nobody can stop me.
Nobody can stop me. That's it. Knight f5 and take off the watch.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, at least Conrad keeps his pawn on e6 and hoping to stop knight f5. Well,
that's a sad little pawn.
Positionally speaking, well, I don't really trust Black's setup.
No.
I mean, he has potentially good endgame on the queen side, but with that bishop coming to d3, his king side and the knight to g5 looks a little lonely.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I predicted what you were going to say with an arrow, Alex.
Okay, bishop d3, knight g5. Well, surprisingly, knight e4. Oh,
knight
okay.
E4.
Oh,
who knew?
Well, not so bad. Same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Put the knight on g5.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything better than just castle?
No, there's never anything better than castling in a position like this.
Okay, so castle then.
It improves your king and your rook at a critical time.
Yeah, but on castles he's gonna go knight f g5.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Possibly also threatening to take on f6 twice.
Right, or possibly rook takes d7.
Not necessarily the case, because after take on f6 and then knight takes and trade and then g takes and the queen defends h7.
Right.
So you can maybe steal somehow.
Yeah. I think the primary threat is still just going to be on e6. Like, it's actually awkward just to defend the e6 pawn.
Oh, you have to go, like, one of the rooks has to go to e8, or maybe you push e5?
Yeah, I mean
It's
rook.
kind of sad to
I
play
mean rook.
rook
Rook.
f8.
Rook d to e8, for example, would lose to rook takes d7.
Would it?
Yeah,
Why?
immediately.
Queen takes.
Queen takes knight c5.
Ah,
Yeah,
right.
and knight takes also knight c5. And
Yeah.
then queen h7 mate if they recapture on c5.
No, right. So, well, so yeah. So knight f g5, and it's just hard to find. Rook f8 is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Well, so we. No, maybe the right move.
I mean, rook fe8, for example, I can play rook d7, bishop takes f6, right?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
I'm very
that's
happy
too
here.
strong. That's too strong. Okay, so it's convincing. So our recommendation castles is probably not good.
I would still have played it without calculating here as black.
No. Let's bring this bishop back. Maybe shouldn't we play bishop b7 instead?
Okay.
And he goes knight g5. Well, how else can we protect this pawn aside of king e7?
Right. Yeah, because maybe now I would play knight e to g5, so you can't trade on e4 to distract me.
Well, he played bishop b7, so knight
He
e
did.
to g5.
Yeah, that's what I would see.
Yeah,
I'm sort of
that
thinking now knight e
has
to
already
g5.
been played, and now it's either queen c6 or knight f8 or king e7.
Yeah.
Neither one looks particularly tempting.
No.
But we have to play something, right?
On any of those moves, I'll probably play bishop d3.
Okay, so
I guess king e7's the best of them.
oh no. Well,
I don't know.
well, if king e7, maybe white could play a little. Okay, knight takes c5.
Did
That
something
surprised
else.
me. You know, it's interesting when you're not an attacking player really, you know, and then you look at position like this played by an attacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you always expect them to do those attacking moves, and then suddenly they play something, you know, that I don't know, that's somewhat disappointing even in a sense that I noticed this.
Yeah. Like maybe he's going to play bishop d4 and target the a pawn, and you're going to be like, oh, that's what I would normally
just
do.
can't believe it. Like, okay, fine. I understand, you know, if Mamedyarov ever comments on games of Alex Shermalinsky, okay, then it did. Capture on c5, bishop d4, takes a7. And
Yeah.
Mamedyarov would say, yeah, well, what do you expect
Yeah.
from this guy? Okay, but now it's the other way around, you know. What am I supposed to say now? Why did White trade his attacking piece, you know, that could come and hit a6 and just
Yeah.
go for this disappointing looking exchange?
Yeah, it's just so weird not to target e6. And the bishop c5 seemed like a piece that wasn't very good at defending, so it's like not a priority to trade it. I understand
Not at all.
nothing about knight takes c5.
Well, exactly. Now you can't go knight g5. If anything, black can always go bishop e4, which would, you know, push the queen away and bring the bishop to a better position somewhere.
Yeah.
So he's playing Yermolinsky chess. He's going for this.
Yeah. You know, even bishop e4 was an interesting move there instead of running with the queen.
But why he went to a5? Did he really worry about that silly pawn?
It was defending his a pawn. He
The
did
pawn
it
was
pretty fast
well,
too.
I mean, play queen c7. The pawn cannot be taken.
Mm-hmm.
Or better yet, play queen c6 and give it up. And castle and try to play some counter-attacking chess of your own. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, you've got the move knight e5 if nothing else.
Yeah. Now, okay, the situation changed a little bit. Now white threatens to play c6.
Right.
I absolutely dislike the position of the black queen.
Yeah, suddenly this chess should be right up your alley now that he's playing for breaking the blockades of his past pawn.
I don't know. Well, maybe.
Weird.
If you say so. So bishop c6 looks good, but what's protecting the e6 pawn? White can try to build up pressure with bishop c4.
Bishop c4.
Or
He could play bishop to b5, you know, like forget about attacking e6, just ignore e6.
and go for
And just
bishop
go for
d5
the
is
c pawn.
interesting. Yeah. To continue then with queen e2 if rook c8.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
I mean it's funny how Mamedyarov absolutely looked a different way. As I said, like
yeah.
you expect him, a career attacker, to go after the king, and suddenly goes all positional. But
Yeah, I mean, in knight g5, if it forces black to play like knight f8 or king e7, I mean, it doesn't look bad, but
okay, now so bishop e4 is okay, but once again, queen b3 would attack that pawn.
yeah, that's what I would expect.
And the bishop goes to d5, and then maybe white brings his queen to e3.
Or bishop c4?
Or bishop c4 to trade, which I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay, so we expect queen b3. Other games, okay. So
Probably. Yeah, let's see
okay,
what
so
else is going
Jeffrey,
on. Check in on
well,
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey has moved every pawn,
Every
He has
single
8
one.
pawns. Yeah. He still has 8 pawns, but he moved them all already. But he has the bishops and the flexible pawn structure. So, and the black knights still don't have any good squares.
That's pretty weird. The last time we saw someone move every single pawn they had, it was Mr. Tool against Mamedyarov in the first round.
It didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
In the end. No, I think Jeffrey is bringing his queen over, and no, just in case to keep the king a little safer. The pressure on the long diagonal was nice, but it's hardly needed. I think if black takes on f4, then white is happy to take back with the pawn, and then even take the game to the end game, because the bishop's going to be way stronger than knights. With the open e file. So therefore, black doesn't want to remove his pawn from e5, and is searching for some squares for the knights, but he will not find them.
Not yet. I mean, he doesn't want to trade pawns because he doesn't want to open the bishop, but he'll also need to trade at some point to establish a knight square. Right now, white has every square on the entire board covered.
Black's position. I mean, this is the classic illustration of the two bishops advantage, right? Well, people think, there has to be some open position with the bishop raking up the board. Yeah, it comes, but much, much later. In the beginning, it's always slow and careful procedure, advancing your pawns that way, keeping that way that you don't let knights to get a hold of any squares, and keeping the bishops in the back. I call it the Rustam Kamsky strategy, because this is what he outlined for his son Gata, during our bus trip to around, during this Olympiad in the Philippines. And he said, keep your bishops in the back. Don't move your central pawns, and then come from the left. And he emphasized that with imitating nice left hook.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Gata did. And he crushed his opponent.
Wow.
Yes.
So Rustam knew what he was talking about, huh?
Oh, no, of course. As Alexander Ivanov famously said, Rustam attended so many great chess tournaments, even an idiot would learn how to play chess. And Rustam is certainly not an idiot.
Okay.
All right. Okay, after this little recollection from the old days, we're looking at this move g5, which is an interesting attempt, I would say, to establish some kind of a foothold in this position.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna work because it's the f file.
So now I was thinking knight f6, but then he'll take on f7 and play fg5. That's what I hadn't taken into account before.
D8 to help.
Oh, there's the knight on d8. Okay, so knight f6 is still
Knight f6 has been played.
Right move,
That's the right move. And now, if you can, I know we wanted to get at least one of the bishops, but all the same, we take on d5, and then the knight from d8 can hardly move anywhere. So I don't know if. No, right. So what about some kind of a standard strategy? Let me take on e5, and you take back, and I'll play. What am I gonna play? I was gonna play e4.
Sure, that looks good.
I can also play like rook f5.
Rook f5 looks good too. All the
But rook f5 is also possible. I was somewhat afraid that you would push d4, but it's not good because, well, I think there'll be some d6. But anyway, so white can take on e5 and just play on the f file.
Mm-hmm.
And if black ever takes the bishop on d5, then the pawn takes place of the bishop, and I don't know.
Actually, I mean, in this move order, if knight takes d5, there might be rook takes e5.
Well, because the knight is going to be stuck on c3.
Yeah,
right?
it depends if we can actually trap that knight, but that's the theory. Is to
Instead, a
trap this
quiet
knight.
move was played.
Okay.
Bishop back to g2.
Bishop back to g2, knight back to d7. I mean, it makes sense. With Kesov having 1 minute, Jeffrey wants to extend the tension.
Exactly. And Kesov played this knight d7. It's not going to give you a draw by repetition. I think the knight had to
Well, he had to defend his g5 pawn. So.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Pretty much he had to trade it or move the knight, and I don't think he wants to trade here. GF, EF, and then E5's under extra pressure. So knight d7, and now you see king h1 is another move, just letting Kesov's time go, and he just went from 1 minute and 20 seconds to 40 seconds. So it's having the desired effect. I was going to say, I think that's also part of why Kesov played g5. It's like you have to kind of provoke something critical if you've got 1 minute against 5 minutes. You can't just sit around doing nothing.
Yeah, but the whole game looks like a disaster for Kesov. You know, he never got anything going, no counterplay, and he's just. I mean, I would be shocked if he saves this game. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So. In the meantime, Mamedyarov plays this positional chess, and now he's rewarded for that by extra pawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me just quickly click through some moves for everybody so we can see how he got it. Oh, he brought his queen through c4 to b5, Alex. Breaking the blockade. Kind of with the same idea that we saw, just going after...
In the meantime, Izoria won his second game. So as we predicted, Izoria was put in there to do his job.
Yeah.
To beat some lower-rated players.
He played against the fourth board, and he won that game before we had finished looking at the other match. I could never even click on his game. He won so fast.
Oh, he won the 19 moves or something. Okay, let's see how exactly. Okay, 22 moves.
All right.
But the game was actually over. I think the game was over on move 19 when he made this. He was already up a piece. Maybe even before.
And the hackers are going to get another point here from Mamedyarov, I would think, with an extra pawn and a big time lead.
Yeah. Okay, Izoria did his job, you know. Now, well, he can crack open a beer, you know, and sit and watch Naroditsky.
So now the most interesting is, well, actually, I think it's pretty clear how all these games are going to go. I just clicked on the game between Ruifeng Li and fake Aleskerov, and it looks like
Aleskerov threatens to checkmate. No, win a bishop.
I think rook g5 was deliberately to be able to play d5 now and have the knight defended and get out of rook c1.
Yeah, I suppose so. But he's not sure how to answer king d6, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore he played bishop takes b5.
Sure.
So what's few checks, right? When the king can get through.
Yeah, he's got so much material here.
And I'll get another one. Grab h5. Good job, Ruiz.
Just take them all. Now he could, hang a rook and still play for a win.
No, he's only going to lose the b3 pawn.
Yep.
The b4 pawn is going to be taboo because of the fork on c6.
Because of knight c6, yeah.
So forget about it. Bishop c4. Laugh at him.
Or bishop a4 might be also good for laughing.
Bishop a4 is even better.
Yeah.
Nice job. Okay, so good win for Ruiz.
GG.
Not so many upsets in this match, right?
No, this is going to be another 2-2 round here.
Well, yeah, because that's just how it goes. But eventually, something's going to give, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the top boards would play each other.
Something always does give.
Yeah, so... Okay, this one's over.
Yeah, this one's over. So I guess we look at Jeffrey versus Kesov and see how this one goes. It's a little bit messy. Something happened here. Kesov has 9 seconds, but maybe a chance.
Well, suddenly he played this move queen takes g4, which is... Oh, well.
Yeah. How did this
So
happen?
we need to look at...
So
No,
white
the
broke
white
through on
bishop on
this file.
c3 is not doing anything.
You know, his
So
idea of
we...
putting his rook on h8, Alex, with his king on h7, this was a resilient defensive idea. I mean, there was no other open file, so he just waited on the h file. And at some point, he moves his king off, and there he is.
Yeah,
Position.
but now white is gonna get this... white is gonna get queenside pawns.
Mm-hmm.
And the rook on h8 is actually kind of out of place.
And
Trying
now
to
rook
bring
d6.
rook d6, so he's down 2 pawns and he's gonna lose it.
Okay, it's falling apart. I still think that was a pretty clever idea. To just stick the rook on
under the
h8.
circumstances, he did his best, of course. No, white can still blow it if he just exchanges on f6 twice, wins the third pawn on e4 and allows rook b6. But it's better to do it right away, take on e4, because the knight is actually pinned.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
hardly anything black can do.
Yep.
Still trying though, but now white is tempted again to take on f6 and try to...
Yeah,
he did it.
I would have maybe taken a5. That's tempting too. But yeah, this way going straight to the g5 is the way I was thinking of going to the rook endgame. I thought black would play rook b6 instead of e6.
Well, instead of course rook b6, you have to split the pawns.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not gonna be much of a contest.
Nothing left here. So that's 4-4, and we're gonna switch
Mamedyarov
over to the other match now.
That's right.
So I'm bringing back Stukopin.
Against Michael Brown.
I'm bringing out Joshua Sheng, one of our favorite players. He, by the way, they play him just for the first 2 games as well, Alex, looking for a huge upset, a huge knockout.
Because he only plays well against the top-rated guys.
He seems to be
Send
good
this guy to YKZ next year.
He seems to be good at taking his shot against the higher rateds.
Yeah, because if you said it yourself, you saw him playing against some random guy and it didn't quite work. Right?
All right, so here he is. He's playing black against Vladimir Belosh, the second GM playing for the Rio Grande Ospreys
He's
lineup.
actually doing quite okay because in the endgame, I think he has this active rook and he can counterattack a3. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like white has any clear edge here in this position.
No, I mean it is a slightly tactical position with a couple things hanging here, so it's not sure what will come out.
I don't know.
Because I mean, white could play rook d5, or they could play something like
one game already
rook e1.
Ended in a draw.
Yeah, Dreev actually drew.
Who was it?
Dreev actually drew with presumably the board 3 of Rio Grande. We can click to round 2.
It's just Vasquez, right?
Vasquez, yeah. Vasquez has performed well all year, I think.
Yeah, he's...
If I check this guy's games. I mean, look at this history. 1-1, draw, 1-1, 1-1, draw. He lost.
He never lost?
He's lost a game to Alexander Lenderman and Robert Hess. It looks like he did. He had one or 2 days where he didn't do well, but he's got a tremendous record for a board 3. To be scoring more wins than losses for a board 3 is pretty good. I mean, it's hard to lose matches if your board 3 is scoring more than 2 points every round.
So we're back looking at what, I'm looking at Belosh versus Sheng. And in this position, white is trying to drum up some kind of play against the black king.
Yeah.
Because both weaknesses, b5 and g6, are protected by the bad bishop.
Right.
That's what bad bishops do. They protect good pawns.
Yep.
In the meantime, rook e3 is a threat to take the pawn on a3, and it's up to white to find some.
Yeah, if black ever really gets a good chance, I think he'll probably play rook a to e7 first to support his bishop, and then look to bring one of the rooks to e3.
No, well, that's what he did. So,
Yeah.
but he had to do this rook e1 check in between. But that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. There is
Yeah.
no check on e6, and any attempt to play like rook c5 or rook b6, it's not really a threat to take the pawn on b5 because it leave the white king at mercy of the black rooks.
Yeah, and black will always win back the pawn on a3 after a transition to a pure
Of
rook
course.
endgame.
So it's still absolutely not clear how white is going to handle this.
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be that the position's about equal. What is that?
Most
Is that
likely,
reasonable?
but no, white obviously is looking to win it somehow, but I'm not quite sure how. I was actually thinking of playing rook c3 for now, but
Mm-hmm.
no, he allows black to play rook 1 to e3.
Yep.
And maybe he's looking to play h5, but what does exactly h5 do? It doesn't. No, I can take h takes just 6
Cranks up
bishop.
the pressure a little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe
h5 is useful, but
maybe one
but
way for
white
white.
doesn't have a whole lot of time. He has to do it quick.
Maybe one of the things that white could go for would be with the pawn on h5 to play rook takes e8, rook takes e8, rook g6 check, and then knight f5, and play that kind
It's
of position.
probably not going to win the
No?
game.
Okay.
No, he plays rook e5. That's little defensive, but he stopped h5 and
Yeah.
still, I don't know exactly what white.
He's overprotecting this f5 pawn in advance.
Yeah. So rook c3. I thought this would be played. It's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe white is looking to play rook to g3 to renew the threat of h5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Looks a little awkward. Rook g3. Is black and zugzwang? Can't be.
Unlikely.
He
Okay,
plays
so
rook e4.
goes to e4. So we would expect the answer to be h5.
I guess. Maybe he wants to do checks. Rook f4 check.
Mm-hmm.
King g3. Rook g4 check. King f3. It didn't do a whole lot, those checks, but...
No.
Okay, another idea here is to start some trades and play rook d7. I'm trying to undermine this knight.
To play rook d7 here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I'd
there
been
is
wondering
knight
if
e6
white could
check.
answer it with knight b5.
Oh, indeed, knight b5 is possible. Yeah, then it's not such a great move. So I don't know. Well, there's still some pressure on black's position.
Also, rook d7, bishop d7, rook c7. There's knight rook d4. Yeah, so it's got to be knight b5 order. Yeah. Okay, let's pop over. Oh, he did play rook d7. Okay, so let's just check this. Let's check knight b5 for a moment.
Yeah, let's try to figure out what it's about. Knight b5 was played quickly. Okay, if I blunder this, then maybe Sheng could also blunder it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it two of us.
Mm-hmm. As long as it's not three of us.
Well, yeah, but you didn't blunder. You don't count. Yeah, big blunder, it turns out.
Seems pretty conclusive, right? There's a pretty big threat of now trading on d7 and playing rook c7. So like g takes h5 doesn't do it good enough.
Still hold it, but then of course the b pawn becomes.
It
so
holds,
dangerous.
but it's so bad. The white knight gets to c3, which is a great square, right? And oh, it goes somewhere else. Huh?
He went to d4.
I thought c3 was great.
Well, he wants b5. I don't know what's better here. None. No, well, king d8. What else to play?
Mm-hmm.
b7 is quite a threat.
Right. And on king d8, if my knight were on c3, I would play knight d5, and black would resign.
Maybe he would still resign now. What
Maybe
can
he'll
play
still
after
resign
this?
now. So rook a8, bishop c8, knight c6 is a good threat here.
All right, so you gotta play king c8. But then, of course, there is knight c6.
Mm-hmm.
And if the rook moves away, okay, knight c6 is...
If the rook moves away, you've got rook c7, which puts a
Yeah.
lot of pressure on the black king.
And of course, no, all right. So this one...
Oh, and it was played. Whew.
Yeah, it was played, yeah.
All right. That's going to be that.
Okay, so I was trying to make up for my blunder. So I suggested one bad move and one good move. Call it even.
Call it even. All
Yeah.
right. And
Another point for
Joshua
your
Sheng
graph.
is now even as well. But I wanted to click over to the game between Josh Daruka and Keaton.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
So this was an isolated queen pawn position where white was building up an attempted attack against the black king. And now he's playing a pretty decisive move d5 with a threat of bishop takes rook and presumably a threat of pawn takes e6.
Well, this whole thing wasn't working until he lost his pawn on b2.
Yeah, this was like the best
position
moment,
was
huh?
No, I don't know, just too good, you know. What white's position was too good for a desperate attack to work.
Mm-hmm.
But now, since the position became suspect, right, then d5 works.
Now suddenly it's all good. So d5 threatens, actually it's a triple threat because it might threaten rook takes e4 as well, right? But
Yeah.
I think the big threats are on b2 and e6.
Yeah, now he plays knight takes f2, which is reasonable because at least it hits the queen.
Mm-hmm.
So gives black some kind of illusion of counterplay.
Yeah.
It's
The danger is that after queen g3, black's position might be even worse than it was before because now his
G6
knight is still hanging, his g6 is hanging, his rook that defends the knight is hanging.
Well, I was gonna say it would take a miracle, but okay, you take e takes d5, bishop takes b2, and your bishop on e7 is hanging.
Mm-hmm. So if you take on c4, rook e7 and resign.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So that means that you're gonna play probably down a couple of pieces after e d5, bishop takes b2, bishop c5. Somehow I don't think it's
gonna play down multiple pieces now. Okay.
Yeah, then white
Bishop
goes
C5.
bishop d3, threatens to take on g6.
Okay, it's a good threat.
Yeah, all right. Great bishop on a8, by the way.
Yeah.
Use.
And then
I
it goes
think
knight
that
d3,
resignation
knight
time
d3,
about-
bishop c3, queen e3. And eventually white just plays queen d4 or e5 or something.
Okay, just average skill set. Keaton playing bad. This is bad. I mean, look at this. He's winning by the largest margin today.
Yeah.
I know people won a lot of games today, but I haven't seen such a winning position yet. It's more winning than what Mamedyarov had.
Yeah.
He's up a piece, threatening to win the rook on b2 and has a crushing attack.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
how
you
is
can't-
that not enough?
Yeah.
I think he's playing a pretty good game, at least.
Yeah, I mean, if this is bad, I don't know how much better you're supposed to play.
I don't know. I would take this game any day.
Yeah. If you had to play your worst game, you'd be like, yeah, this will be my worst game.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
But
it's just too bad that...
Stokopin, well, is not able yet to establish any advantage against Michael Brown. At least I don't see it. Brown's got pretty decent counterplay on the king side, suddenly attacking the g4 pawn, and he kept his blockade on d5.
Mm-hmm.
Generally put up a pretty good fight against white's bishop pair.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like black's in any particularly bad shape. I mean, should white play knight to d2 maybe and challenge the light squares?
Knight to d2, a typical Yermolinsky line. Bishop g6, trade on e8, black takes with the bishop. Now take on d5. Oh, you'll love this move. And bishop takes c7.
Oh, yeah. That's great. We took black
looks
off of the
great, you know.
g-pawn.
This is, well, by the way, that's exactly how I'm going to play, because I have knight e3. So g4 you never get back. In the meantime, I'm already up a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I don't have knight e3. I played knight d2.
Right,
No,
you don't yet have it.
Yeah. My knight is on d2.
You'll have to come back again.
Well, then maybe I have to come back to f1, but then it doesn't work. Yeah, because In the end, there is a trade on g4 and queen d7, and I have to play queen g3. I'm still gonna do this probably.
You
If I
still
don't
do it,
take
yeah.
this pawn, I have absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Oh, they're saying Kira sacked his queen. Keaton sacked his queen. Let's see it.
Okay, now let's see.
Bishop f2.
Well,
He
he
takes
actually
here.
managed to lose all of his advantage.
Really? Okay, so
Well,
he
yeah.
trades in his queen. He's got a lot of pieces here. Rook e7, dc4, rook d7, rook d7, bishop
Why
f6.
did he give up his queen?
He's got a knight against 3 pawns, including 2 connected passers?
And no, he's looking to mate him somehow. Rook e8 and rook j8.
Oh, I see. I see what he wants to
But I
do.
don't know if it's mate. Maybe it's just a draw.
Well, how about bishop to c6 to defend against that? That
Bishop
looks
c6
like...
is nice, but he doesn't believe in this, and he just takes every pawn because he says, "Okay, make your draw."
What? Why
Well,
is
is
he...
there a win?
Why did he allow this? Black must have been winning if they played my move.
No, well, yeah, but that's your move,
Okay.
and we have 12 seconds on the clock. So
Oh,
now
it's...
at least he gets some pawns, and
They're in...
he's hoping that he will take one last white pawn. But this is pretty risky proposition to play like this.
Yeah,
Of course,
also...
he's got good pawns too.
Also,
But
white can take on f7.
yes.
He can take it too. I just calculated that if
Well,
the
the
king
king
comes out
goes
to f8, he's
h8,
mated by rook g7, bishop e7. Oh, mate in 2. Oh!
What made him do?
Bishop e7, king e8, knight f6.
Oh yeah. Indeed, it was mate.
Yeah.
Oh, he blunders mate again.
Yeah.
No, bishop f5, good defense.
Yeah.
There is no mate.
Now there's
No,
no
this
mate.
one became wild.
Yeah.
Indeed, no. Listen. So who said that Keaton playing bad? What did you know? You're
Yeah.
using a time machine or something? I mean,
Oh.
what is how? Now White is scrambling not to lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
Probably gonna lose it. To be honest.
Yeah.
That was
93.
awkward. The last move, rook b1. Okay, then it's gonna be maybe a draw.
Yeah. Yeah. That should be a draw, I think.
I'd say so. Yeah, draw. Okay. Now, so what
Okay.
does it do for the match?
So we click back to the Stukopen game, I guess, right? Because that's still going
So
with Michael
what
Brown.
game is? So he didn't win the pawn on c7.
No.
So he gave up. He gave up his bishop for. Okay, for the black bishop. Well. But he's still aiming to take that pawn on c7.
Oh, he got it.
Yeah.
He got the pawn.
Important pawn it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's not really any counterplay.
Well, maybe black just needs to keep this position kind of intact and not necessarily afraid of the endgame.
Mm-hmm. I think he needed to move his knight from c6 because it's his worst piece. Bring it to like f5 or something.
No, for now, yeah, maybe. So he's gonna have to, but somehow he avoids the endgame because Stukopin is really low on time.
Oh yeah.
But this is the danger, that White is gonna take on f6 at some moment and try to take more pawns. Queen
Right.
takes b7.
Queen b7, queen b5 really fast, then come back to g2.
Yeah.
Oh, he got something back.
Yeah,
I'm surprised by king g2.
He actually got a lot back.
Yeah. I guess, Stukopin probably had his queen, had some other move ready, and then he only had 1 second to move. He had to run back and grab it.
And now he's just trying to survive here.
So now Michael Brown is ahead a pawn. with
Yeah.
nothing that can go wrong for him and extra seconds on the clock.
Yeah, some important 5 seconds, but important was not to blunder knight f5 check, but
Yeah.
well,
Oh la
that's
la.
strange. King
That's a
f4.
blunder, right?
King f4 was unnecessary. King g2, and it's probably still closer to a draw.
Yeah. But now just move the h-pawn up. And this is pretty lucky for San Diego to get this one. I mean, if they get it, but
Well,
it looks
they
like
will
they're
get
winning.
it because the knight comes back to f6. It's in the books now.
Yeah.
Brown needs no time whatsoever.
So that brings our second match again to 4-4. I thought that Rio Grande were going to pull ahead this round.
Yeah, but
off of
Stukopin
Stukopin.
losing with white. He spent way too much time. Oh, spent
man.
way too much time trying to. It's difficult to outplay Michael Brown on positional play. I played him.
Mm-hmm.
He's really much better in this kind of stuff, than his rating would indicate.
Yeah.
So, but Stukopin didn't get his kind of attacking position going.
No.
Man.
And
maybe his
confidence isn't the highest since he lost in the first round. It can, if you think of it as one player at a time going through 4 games, how they do in the first 2 games can, or in the first game can start to set a tone for the day. I'm calling up the next match again, between San Jose Hackers and Dallas Destiny, and in this round, Daniel Naroditsky makes his debut, comes in
and
for
also,
the Hackers.
And also the Dictator is back.
And the Dictator is back. We'll see if that compensates for bringing in a 2100 rated player for board 4. Here you see Ivan Ke.
But I would like to start with the players we've seen earlier today.
Yeah.
That's Mamedyarov and Ruiz.
Okay.
And I'm looking at this position and I see a fork, which is going to get the material back. So Mamedyarov played this, a little tricky combination. Well, sacrificed on a5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's his favorite line, right? This
f3. A5.
That's what he used to.
Check.
That's what he used to beat Wesley Saw.
Yeah.
In our last regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
And he also used it to win against Hu Yufan in the important last round game of the Grand Prix, first Grand Prix tournament that allowed him to get back into a share of first place.
Mm-hmm.
So that f3 line is really working well for Mamedyarov.
Yeah,
and
it tells us that he's also playing. It tells us he's also playing his A game openings in the Pro League. If he's playing exactly the same thing here as he's playing in Sharjah Grand Prix.
Yes, but why is Black spending any time? Maybe there's something wrong with my browser here.
What I see is move 20 knight fd7 from Black.
Okay, yeah, I need to.
And now White's playing queen to a1.
I'll get to this.
I feel like Mamedyarov should have an advantage here with the bishop pair and the black bishop on c8 seeming lost for the moment. So...
Yeah, it's probably better because it's sort of a Benoni structure, but where is the dark square bishop on g7?
Yeah, ideally in the Benoni with the bishop on g7, you trade the other 3 minor pieces and just have that bishop left. And here, he doesn't have that bishop, and he's got 3 pieces tripping over each other for 1 square.
Exactly, and d6, of course, is always a weakness. Well, yeah, White's advantage is probably larger, than it seems. It may be quite substantial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's time for Black to abandon all caution here and push b4, because otherwise queen a5 also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. He went for it. He's trying it.
Yeah, in the meantime, Dictator is playing an interesting game with the black pieces in the Greenfield.
Whoa.
Against Chris Tool.
His knight's on the other
So
side of the board.
he allowed the white pawn to come to e6, but somehow, well, he's doing okay, I think. Maybe even more than okay.
If knight e2, he's playing bishop d5, maybe?
think so. Yeah, why not?
So,
Another check, right?
right, then queen b5, knight c6.
Knight c6, yeah,
Yeah.
naturally.
Just developing and
It's a
trying to get
groove.
rid of the e-pawn.
It's a Grunfeld, you know. You have to play like this.
Yeah. So, maybe white's going to take on e2 with his king. Okay, the queen. Yeah. If black takes on f3 and d4, I think it's bad for black. Oh, no, I'm wrong.
What?
I don't know what else he can do, but it just doesn't... Well, maybe he'll play knight c6, not queen d4. But white still has knight b5 then. Knight c6, knight b5,
No, knight
queen
b5
d8,
has to be
bishop
respected.
f4.
Right?
Yeah.
Something has to be played against this move, knight b5.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of black's position at the moment.
Really? I like black here. What's wrong with black's position?
Mostly knight b5, so maybe he can just
No,
play.
knight b5.
Maybe he
yeah,
can just defend it.
b6. So whose move here? Black's move?
Black's move.
I'll go f5.
f5.
No, time to get this bishop into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Question: how to register in Pro Chess League?
A little bit late for that. These are the playoffs.
Yep. Maybe for next year. No, well.
But if you're some
devices,
kind of if you're some kind of a superstar, the teams might still be able to bring you in as a free agent. So
even now, yeah.
you know, if you think that the San Jose Hackers would be better off with you on their team instead of Dictator Chirilla or Mamedyarov or something like that, you could send them a letter.
Me. Well, no, I hope you're not talking me. You know, no, nobody.
No, I'm talking to
to that guy,
Apurv Bora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
No, obviously, like we know that we're not upgrades to Mamedyarov, but maybe this guy is.
So Stukopin now is feeling some pressure to make up for his unfortunate performance so far.
Yeah.
And he has the white pieces against Melik Khachiyan.
Right.
Who's fresh and well rested. And
that's right. Another new player coming in. Melik Khachiyan here for the Surfers. Rested the first 2 rounds. Tags in for Keaton Cura.
His position is somewhat alarming here. No, well, he found the right way to protect his king. The knight from f8 rather than from f6, because that would allow white to play d5.
Yeah,
but
never
still,
really want
this
to come
position
here.
is not not very safe, you know.
No, I mean, it's just terrible.
You think so?
I think so. It's like he can never play c5 or e5, and white has the bishop pair, and white has the h-file. I would say it's terrible.
Okay. I don't know. I would play knight f8, try to double my rooks on the d-file.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking if you bring over to the h-file and play like bishop a3, that you're not really threatening to take. There is no might.
No, what I would maybe do is rook h1, queen h4, rook d2, and then play d5. If I were trying to mate on the h-file.
d5.
Yeah. Or bishop a1.
First move was rook a1.
Yeah.
No, I agree, you know, well, clearly, you know, anybody would rather be white, but Melik played f5, which is kind of a radical solution to his problems.
Mm-hmm.
If it works. If
it
doesn't, it make it much worse. We will see.
Yeah. Okay, look at this game here between Xiong and Naroditsky.
Well, yeah,
So, Naroditsky is just tagged in. And Jeffrey has just won a pawn on a4, last move. He kicked the knight out of the outpost on e5, where it seemed to be dominating the bad bishop. Kicks it out with f6, grabs the a-pawn. I assume that the two players have actually calculated a different line as to what they expect is coming here. You know, I don't think Naroditsky was planning to just lose the a-pawn, and whatever he has planned, Xiong doesn't think it works.
No, white has to play queen e3 now, aiming to play knight takes f6.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's really no other way to play this position. Otherwise, he's going to be down a pawn. He just played queen f3.
Yeah. So now he's probably also threatening rook to c1, winning the bishop,
Absolutely, rook c1 is the main threat. So I assume that bishop will go somewhere,
like
and
e8 to
then
cover something on the king side.
yeah, e8 could probably defend against the sacrifice. Maybe going to e8 is best.
Mm-hmm. And
But
then
I
white
don't
has
think
to
White's
worry about
position
queen
is so
b2.
terrible.
Whose
But
position is
White's position is not so terrible. I
not so
don't think
terrible?
so. No, well, he's down a pawn. Is it one pawn? Yeah, just one pawn. I think he has some chances.
This is funny. Greg is saying that actually Jeffrey, even though he's playing for the Dallas team, he just played this tournament in California last week, where he came in second place, and he's actually staying at Chirilla's house right now. So they're playing together from the same location, even though they're on opposite teams here.
Well, I think it's okay because both players. No, they. I don't think they're gonna conspire, you know, one way or another, even if they played on the same team. You know, I kind of
Yeah.
trust these guys. So
Yeah.
anyway, is it
So
time to
bishop
take on
b5.
f6 or not? I'm not quite sure.
Well, what are the alternatives here for white other than sacking a knight and going for a draw with the queen? Because he's down a pawn, and queen b2 looks really annoying to me. I mean, I'm just not seeing what I would do as white once black plays queen b2.
Well, yeah. On the other hand, knight takes f6. What if black ignores this and plays king f7?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then
Then I guess
knight
maybe
e4.
it's just
Knight e4.
knight e4
Yeah.
and takes on f1.
Yeah. And after takes on f1, maybe knight d6 to c8.
But then it will be queen d1, but it doesn't make any threat. Yeah,
Yeah.
only a draw,
Yeah.
I guess, from h5.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
knight
funky
takes
variation.
f6
But
seems reasonable, but instead rook c1 was played. It's still possible to answer queen takes b2 with knight f6, but now that rook is under attack.
yeah, and well, both of them are under attack. It really limits what white can do with their queen.
So what exactly is the White's
plan?
intention here?
I have no idea. Maybe he brings the rook back to a1, rook a to a1.
Mm-hmm.
With a new threat of rook to b1 again. And then
bishop d3.
bishop
and then
d3 to cover e4 and b1, and then he throws the sack on f6, or...
But you're right about one thing. White is just hoping for perpetual.
Right.
Uh,
There's no second piece in this attack, everybody. So this kind of an
absolutely
attack,
not.
this
With
is a
rooks of-
perpetual attack, not a checkmate attack.
It's a perpetual, yeah. And okay, he played it, but bishop d3 looks fairly obvious. Well, but
Yeah. I mean, if black played something like bishop to e8, then maybe queen e4 becomes an option. You know, white might have enough to play without the sack. But if black plays bishop d3, I don't know what else you do. But hope for perpetual.
yeah, bishop d3 certainly looks the.
I mean,
Well,
technically,
speaking
I've got...
of this, maybe
Yeah.
maybe bishop d3, and after the sacrifice, maybe the black king should just go to. He played bishop d3.
Okay.
Immediately go king f7 and then try to go d7 and that area and try to escape.
But that allows knight takes e4 again, right? Or are you taking
No, but
the
I
piece
mean
first?
knight f6 and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I accept
take
the
it.
sacrifice.
Okay.
You take on h6 and I
Yeah.
immediately go king f7.
Right.
And the checks, okay, fine. The king will just run to e8, d7, c6, d6.
Run. And the king gets to like d6, and then what?
Yeah, well, I don't know. White is not doing anything with the rooks. Prior to that, you know, the white rook, the a rook could join the attack,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be dangerous for black to do
Yeah.
this.
Now the white rooks basically can't move. It's pretty worrisome. Someone says that Mamedyarov has played a crazy move. Let's see what it was. Queen to d7. In fact, queen d7 was taking a piece. In fact, it wasn't just a crazy move. It was a winning tactic. Alex.
Incredible.
That's it, I
So
think.
he had this extra pawn, right? After the move f5. And it seems
Yeah.
like a serious problem converting the advantage. And lesser players think, oh, I gotta take on c5 and not sure how I'm gonna deal with the dark square blockade.
Right.
And Mamedyarov just plays e5.
Three things for white hanging on the e file, and he just says, "Here, let me feed you everything I have on the e file." And queen d7. And
now he just
yeah.
wins a piece, and the game is over.
Oh, Ruiz Feng's
Queen
turn.
c3 and queen c8.
Queen c8. They're just like having a joke together, you know. If you guys don't know, this is like chess player humor.
The joke is on Ru Feng this time.
Yeah.
I know. So another great win for Mamedyarov.
Conrad.
Well, I have a feeling that just like who you fan did, you know, these people, they don't really know where they're getting themselves in. You know, they're not. I mean, they're both great players, of course, Hu Fan and Ru Feng, but I don't know them as great experts on the Nimza. You know, and then they walk right there in enemy territory, and what are they doing?
Yeah.
Play something else. I know Mamedyarov is a dangerous player, you know, regardless, but I mean, don't walk into the lines that he knows best. He's the best player in the world in this lines.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Conrad Holt.
Strange opening choice.
Meanwhile, Conrad Holt scored a point for San Diego for Dallas to keep the match equal, pretty quickly against the board 4 that Dallas brought in. Sorry, that the hackers brought in. They brought in Ivan and to beef up their top boards, but the cost is on board 4 here. A positional exchange sack from Conrad and just easily walks his queen to the king side and wins in 20 moves. So we got Jeffrey versus Daniel. He did not sack the knight.
So he's playing down 2 pawns.
Just playing on without his pawns. He played instead the move d5, Alex. Pawn takes, queen d4. Oh.
It's just not going to do anything.
No way. No way. This is not a plausible approach.
So b5, naturally.
Oh.
Now 2 connected passed pawns. I think this game is simply over.
That's going to cost him.
This game is just over.
Yeah. So the critical moment was that a4 pawn sack, right? I mean, he thought he had something, and Jeffrey just calculated that there was nothing too scary, and he took the pawn, and there was never anything clear for white.
I still think that this knight takes f6 had to be played instead of rook c1.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only chance.
Yeah, now, before getting the rooks tied up.
So he's trying for that blockade, but what are the chances? Queen a5, the most direct move.
Mm-hmm.
Not allowing white to establish any kind of blockade over there, unless there is knight d5. Oh.
Okay, I mean, maybe some kind of dream of counterplay, but the black pawns are just unblockadable now. They're just gone.
Well, yeah.
These are like each rooks here on a4 and b4.
Well, still, you know, white is centralized. Maybe can make some noise. Knight d5. Speaking of noise. Yeah, grab on f6 and then I don't know. Okay, the rook's hanging, sorry, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of bad version of a not boom variation, right?
Yep.
When the pawns are running down the board and white is trying to drum up some kind of attack against the black king.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, but here it's a bad version because in the regular not boom, you know, white has pretty strong advantage in the center with his pawns, and here, no, well, it's black with the extra central pawn.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you know, knight d5 did make some noise and made Jeffrey consider.
That made Jeffrey stop for a moment.
Yeah, because he lost his b pawn, right?
Yeah, he did not properly consider this. Maybe he should have played queen a7 last move. Then there was queen b4. If queen a7, there was queen b4. Huh. Now he goes to a7.
So he lost an important pawn.
Well, once white gets
Now
the
the
b4
blockade
pawn,
is
they're
still
fine.
there. White's in the game here.
And by fine, I mean white's suddenly better? Maybe that's too much to say, but
No, white stands well here. What's the problem?
it looks pretty good.
Yeah, everything's perfect. Just move the queen to c3. Plan is simple: c7, knight d5, knight f7, knight e7.
And then, yeah. Well, I think this bishop on d3 compares very badly to the knight at the moment.
Okay, e3.
Okay.
That's interesting. So the bishop is.
If knight d3 at any point, there's rook takes knight here, guys. So that's why he's not taking it. Instead, he just continues with your plan of c6, c7, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, well, but now the black rook is better positioned on d7 to protect. So now white is just trying to do what?
He's calculated a long
check.
line. Danya's just smashing this out. Yeah,
no,
trade queens and rook d3.
Won the game, pretty much.
Trade queens, rook d3. And that's it. I think. Spending a few seconds double checking.
Oh
ho 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 ho.
How about that? That's an important victory, and what a turnaround. See, Naroditsky, it took Daniel a little bit of time, to warm up. In the first half of this game, he was unrecognizable, but once he got himself in a properly lost position, he started playing much better. And look at this.
Yeah.
He's taken down Jeffrey.
Yeah, that was big. Wow. So, and the other game this round, Dictator Chirilla with his Grunfeld drew with the board 4 of Dallas. So that's an important half point for Dallas. Not something that San Jose wanted to give up. But nevertheless, Naroditsky's big win puts the Hackers ahead by 1 point going into the last round. Which they need, by the way, because Dallas has draw odds. All right.
Yeah, 6.5. Now let's switch. In the other match, San Diego is up one game on the Ospreys, and what's going on there? So who's still playing?
Well, the first one I clicked to is Melik's game, where we can see that he's lost a pawn while eliminating the bishop pair. We also have Dreev playing.
Facing tough defense here. Well, obviously this is not a great position, but it's not lost yet.
Not lost yet.
Yeah, so there is a lot of work.
Queen d1 here is a blunder after rook e7.
Yeah.
So there's no queen d1 here.
No, I guess the usual strategy of centralization could be applied.
Maybe
which is to trade
bishop b2, right?
Huh?
Oh, trade everything and then play queen d3. Ah.
Yeah, I think. Well, queen h8. The point is that after queen h8, you're ready to give up b7 because you hope that there's going to be a perpetual.
Right, starting with queen e4.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah. No, I think so. So the queen's in position for perpetual, so white would play a move like queen e5, trying to also centralize. And
so queen d3, queen e5. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know.
No.
He did it, Alex. He played.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he
like
played queen d3 yet. Maybe he didn't.
He just traded all the pieces you said.
Yes, of course, but I haven't seen queen d3 yet. Has it been played yet?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. No, well, queen e5 is a better answer to this. Now, from black's point of view, it's interesting to play g5 because it may help to set up various perpetual things. If white ever goes for the b7 pawn, It should help, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, meanwhile, there's another very fascinating position, which is
Yeah.
between Dreev and Belos.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Dreev either sacrificed or lost his a pawn.
Right. It looks like he was in some kind of exchange Slav type position. He's lost a pawn on the queen side. His whole queen side doesn't look very good, but white has not managed to castle.
Because
And
white played h4 at some moment.
because at some
which
point
is-
he lost his mind and took his h pawn. And now white has to deal with some counterplay against f3 and f2 here.
No. Okay, so let's try to run this line down. Bishop back to e2.
Okay,
Which
you
was
got it.
played. So what are we gonna do now? Okay, so he plays rook c8, and for sure he threatens to take first on f3, then on d2, then on d4.
Yeah, he's also threatening just straight up. He could play like knight a5 or knight d4 here probably.
No, rook d1.
Okay,
That had to be done.
given the file. All right, now what? e5, h6.
h6. Just h6.
I don't know. I'm just making a list of moves. You know.
Oh, h6. So interesting that your choice is between a totally desperate looking e5, giving up d5, giving up the whole thing, and h6.
Right.
And it's just,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
I've noticed you always like it when I make Luft, Alex. You're always like, oh, instead of sacking a piece for no reason, you you avoided back
sign
knight mate.
of maturity, you know. Finally, David is growing up. Yeah, about time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting, indeed, from White's point of view. No, he's not threatening to take on before. I assume not.
I assume he does not want to open the C file. But if black moves away the knight to open the C file, white might be able to take on b4 then.
Yeah, right
on
now
a move like
taking
knight e7.
has a problem with some rook b7, you know, things like this also.
I wonder if
So
knight a5 to
what-
c4 is also a candidate here.
Yeah. You mean right now, give up the b4 pawn
Yeah.
like this?
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually,
Maybe.
I think it's worth investigating because if white takes on c4, when you take back with the rook, you get a tempo on the queen and you can win back a pawn on f3.
Yeah, that would be major.
If white
But
doesn't take
instead,
on
rather
c4,
cautious move rook b8 was played,
okay,
which certainly sets up this knight a5 and so on.
yeah, okay. So rook to b8.
Queen c2, how
Queen
about
C2.
that?
Dun, 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 dun.
Is this supposed to be b3 now?
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, b3 was played.
You would think. And he must be going to b1 if he went to c2, or what is he doing? He's going to c1. He's going to c1. He's
But
trying to
then the
restrain the
black rook
c.
can return to the c file,
Yeah,
double up and force the white queen.
return to the scene of the future crime because these rooks are going to do some work.
So rook bc8, bishop c3. What, knight b4? I wonder how
Oh,
long
he played
white
queen
can...
c1.
Yeah, I wonder how long white can play queen a1. Well,
I'm thinking that black's winning, Alex.
okay, so yeah, black's winning. No, if you want to win the game, then I guess it's knight bishop f3, knight d2, and knight d4, right?
Yeah, I was thinking of just knight d2, and then
But then knight takes d4.
knight takes d2, bishop e2, king e2, knight d4. It's a similar position to what you suggested, I think,
But
right?
but Dreev instead plays e5.
e5. All right.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to sacrifice necessarily.
Yeah, no, this move looks very strong, Alex. Like, it does everything that the knight sacks on d4 do. without sacking a piece.
And knight takes e5 is not good because of queen takes f2 mate.
Right, right. This is definitely white's second or third best option, not the best option. Queen to a3. his queen's like on a on like a tour where you're touring somewhere really horrible instead of somewhere nice, right?
Yeah, but so he will take
here.
on
Look,
b3.
all the worst squares on the entire board. See, over here it's terrible. Over here it's terrible.
But he's gonna take on b3 now, and he's okay.
You're saying white is okay?
Yeah, queen takes b3.
He completes his tour. He started at b3, right? 6 moves ago?
No, so, but now he wins a pawn.
Yeah.
After all, black... okay, I don't know. Well, Dreev either didn't have time or desire to calculate the sacrificial lines. And I mean, I don't know, after queen takes b3, why
She's
is black
back.
doing so great? I mean, come to think of that, black has destroyed his central position. Now, white threatens to castle. Forget about the h4 pawn now.
Right.
Everything's gonna fall apart. This whole center is falling apart. And white has obviously this potentially winning advantage on the queen side. Black is one move away from being totally lost.
Okay.
If I castle.
If that's the case, we better do something about it. How about
I
knight
don't
takes
know.
d2?
I think it's too late. e5 was a terrible move.
What?
Yes, e5 was a bad move.
That's a
So
revelation.
well, it only looked good, you know. In fact, you know, he didn't do any damage to white's position and destroyed his own stronghold. Now he's looking for tactics.
He played my move, Alex. He took on d2.
No, well, yeah, well.
Now I'm going to
there's
trade on
nothing else to do.
e3. Yep, he does it. By the way, Alex, if this doesn't work out, then it doesn't mean e5 was bad. He could have always, after queen a3, just played rook to b8 and left the queen on a3 by defending his b pawn.
Okay, all right. I take it back. You know, e takes d4 was bad. Yeah, maybe.
All right, so here,
clearly white is better here. White is up a pawn.
well, here I was thinking rook e7.
Queen g5.
It happened. Queen
Queen
g5,
g5.
I unfortunately didn't see coming. Hopefully Dreev did.
I said one move away from castling, you know, and then there would be nothing to talk about. Queen g5 has been played. Dreev's dangerously low on time, by the way. He's gonna play a bad endgame with no time on the clock, and he will probably save it because he's Dreev.
Okay. Oh.
Knight d4. Aha. That's a nice shot. Look at this, eh?
I was trying to make it work, but I couldn't even make it work for one move.
That is really something. Knight d4. How about that, eh? So now what? Knight takes, right?
Knight takes
Knight
knight.
f3 takes d4.
Then I
And
think
then-
he would play rook c1,
Rook c1.
rook d1, trade, and queen d4.
Yeah, and in this situation, he's got the black, the white king on the run.
And the e2 bishop probably lost.
And on king c1, there is rook c7. And king b1, and then there is bishop g6 and mate. This is an incredible...
Oh, wow, you don't even want to take the bishop. You just mate.
Knight takes d4 is not good.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot take the bishop. I get mated on d8.
Yeah.
But on king c1, there is rook c7 and black mates.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw the boring queen c5 and then taking on e2.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But this was
Okay, that's
impressive violence. All
So-
right, so
no,
knight
it's
d4.
King d1.
This game's heating up.
Queen c6, of course.
All right, threatening checkmate on c1. So, rook takes
Which
d4
is-
defends it, but allows queen c2,
e2. Yep.
and then
I don't
queen
see any
e2,
defense.
which is
I
equally
think
bad.
knight d4 just won the game. That tells you a lot about my intuition. As I said, you know, that white was taking over the game.
Right.
Knight d4 came out of nowhere to probably to win for black.
Knight d4 was pretty awesome. And one of the points of knight d4, which wasn't even seen, is I think that if black took on f6, if white took on
Rook
f6,
c1.
he would play rook c1,
C1,
rook d1, rook e2, king
and rook
f1,
takes D1.
and rook takes d1. This is a very important point.
So for that,
So
it wasn't even important that the black queen was defended. You can, I mean, the queen was, well, was taboo anyway.
by the way, look how many pieces he has hanging, and he's playing like this with 20 seconds on the clock.
Well, everything's hanging, and he just won the game. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's
don't see
a
a
that's a
single-
game of the
single
week
move
candidate right there.
Yeah, for white cannot prolong the game. I side of queen takes g7. I don't see anything that stops mate and two.
Queen g7 to slow the game down by one
Oh,
move.
bishop c4. Okay,
Yeah.
how is this gonna help?
I don't know. Queen c4 still seems to threaten the same checkmates.
He threw in bishop takes f3 for
Mhm.
good measure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he had to, but it doesn't cost him anything.
Oh, of course. Now, well, one
Just
move
do that.
knight d4 is worth it. Amazing move, really. What a move, huh?
Well, Stukopin won this queen and pawn ending against Melik, though.
Just
Seems to have tortured his way through.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna open up this final round top board matchup between Jeffrey Xiong and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Board
But there is
one
still
versus
one game
board
in
one.
progress, right? In the
Yep.
match, that's Tatev playing against Vasquez.
Ah,
And
another.
Tatev is torturing him, but I don't think she's gonna win the game.
Aha, another new entry. Tatev comes into the San Diego lineup here.
Why did white go with the king away from the b7 pawn?
I don't know,
Maybe it's still a draw.
but it looks like the move c6 is
Yeah,
pretty
it's
good.
still a draw. It's still a draw. A bunch of
Still a draw?
checks.
Okay.
If you take on b7, then there just comes checks, and then
Yeah.
once the white king is driven away from the b6 pawn, then king takes c5 is safe. This game is gonna end in a draw. So San Diego is gonna preserve their lead, and then now the Ospreys, they have their work cut out for them. They
Yeah.
have to win 3-1, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right, so we go into
All right. We've got two massive heavyweight matchups here right now. I'm calling up all the games just in case, but I'm pretty sure we're going to start on boards 1 and 2 here. We've got Xiong versus Mamedyarov. The next generation.
we have Naroditsky versus Rufang.
Yep.
Or rather, yeah.
Yeah.
Rather Rufang.
Or
has
Ruiz versus Naroditsky, yeah.
white. Yeah, Rufang has white.
And seems like a pretty happy French defense for Naroditsky. So maybe we'll start with this Rui Lopez with Mamedyarov. See if we
Okay.
can figure out what's going on here.
Let's do this.
So the black bishop on
I mean,
g6.
Black did one thing right, I want to point out move 10. He
Okay.
played e takes d4.
Yeah.
E takes d4 is the only move to play in this Roy Lopez positions, because you avoid the Robson setup with the pawn on d5, and then, we've seen it many times.
Yeah.
You gotta take that pawn on d4.
Gotta
You
take the
can't
pawn on
let
d4.
white, have this.
Even though
his
the
way.
point of the Rui Lopez is to get black to give up the pawn center with e takes d4.
Well, maybe, but no. Yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
But e takes d4 is. I mean, I would prefer anything, this position certainly to playing against the Robson attack.
Yeah.
With this.
It's interesting that black is refraining from taking the bishop on d4, which looks like a good piece. But I guess black's afraid of letting the f-pawn get loose. Given
Also b5 will
the
come
last
under
bishop.
attack. Yeah, he figures if this bishop goes back, that it goes back only to e3.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey is trying to hit that pawn on b5, which is little loose. But,
Yeah.
Well, truth to tell, I'm not sure he wants to take it because then he will be dealing with d5.
Yeah. Also, there could be some immediate knight d4, queen b6, and he'd better have calculated pretty carefully before he does that.
Yeah. No, I can bring the other knight to protect the knight on d4, but it's
Right.
still always d5. His queen on b1, obviously, against that bishop on g6.
Yeah.
That's not safe. But it doesn't mean that bishop d3 is a bad move, because white doesn't have to take on
You
d4.
don't have to take, but at least you let him know that you've got your eye on him.
In the meantime, what is black to do?
Rook
Rook
e8.
rook e8.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe then bishop.
But maybe then suddenly you make bishop b5 pretty good.
Yeah, well, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But rook e8 needs to be considered. Bishop b5 and go d5. If he, well, I don't know exactly. Oh, he took on d4, interesting, and d5.
So, yeah, take the bishop pair, open his bishop, clarify the center. I imagine if white takes on d5, they're a little bit... No, they're not necessarily worse. I guess white could play anything here, ed or e5.
No, well, e5 looks principal. So black is not going to take on d3 because if he does, then he cannot bring the knight to e4. So he's going to have to play knight e4 right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then white has this somewhat risky but interesting move, knight d2 to b3.
Ah, okay.
With the idea of hopefully somehow play f4, f5.
Mm-hmm.
Which is dangerous to do against Mamedyarov.
Right.
Well, obviously there's knight on e4 and maybe bishop h4 at some moment. But it's a try.
Yeah, and a secondary idea. So you've got f4, f5 is one idea. You also have the idea of like f3, and then when the knight moves, trading on g6 and pushing e6.
Yeah, you could try to do this. Although that knight is
possible.
going to be dangerously perched on g3 close to the white king.
Yeah, if that's where it goes, that might be a problem.
Yeah. So, I don't know, e5 seems principled, but you say e takes d5 and white is okay, but does white have any advantage now?
No.
Maybe black just goes queen takes d5, right?
Right.
Simply.
And
But
then,
he told us the d file is overloaded with the white pieces that are not protected at all. Interesting. Now, is there some kind of match strategy involved in this situation, or is it too early to tell?
well, let's see. The hackers have a 1-point lead, but the Destiny have draw odds. So essentially, it's a one game match. So the question would be, would Xiong trade his white for trying to just get a draw against Mamedyarov? And the answer is that might be reasonable.
Yeah, so that's why he went e takes
might
d5.
Be reasonable that if he could just get a draw and hope that the rest of his team can do
Is there any merit now in bishop b4?
In bishop to b4?
Well, some kind
sure.
Of pin and...
Yeah, if you want to keep the game going, keep your bishop pair. Yeah.
No, the bishop pair is probably going to be short-lived anyway.
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't see how d3 and g6, they're going to be exchanged one way or another.
Absolutely.
But at least keep a little bit more life in this position with bishop b4. I don't know. Seems possible to me. What else is there? So, in the meantime, Rufeng versus Daniel. So, kind of a slow-moving heavyweight battle there in the French.
White's trying to create sort of an eventual kingside attack.
It may work out. It takes one move. Bishop d8 and bishop h6 would be totally winning. But he impatient, didn't wait for bishop d8 and put that bishop out on h6 immediately.
Yeah. So the bishop's probably coming to f8 to defend the g7 pawn.
Yeah, but then there is no threat of capturing on h6. So.
Yeah. So white can leave his bishop on h6 for a long time and feel cool.
Well, yeah. Because white cannot quite take on g7 with the bishop, go knight f6 and then mate from h6. Black will have time to remove the pawn from f6. Simply knight e8 or something like this. So I think bishop f8 can be played.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably next move you have to put your queen in somewhat safer position, away from that check. So what does white have in mind on bishop f8? Can you guess?
Can I guess what he's planning to do next?
Is
No.
he just going to attack on some kind of a crazy bishop g7, h5?
You mean bishop?
I mean knight g7,
Knight
bishop
g7.
g7, yeah.
And
Or
now h5
too.
here?
Yeah. But a different line because Daniel just took.
Okay.
Now he's facing with that mate and he went knight e8.
He took the piece?
Yeah, well, because he probably figured somehow he will protect his key g7 square.
So he just
So
wants
his
to
plan
win.
is knight g5, bishop takes,
Yeah.
pawn takes, queen e7. And if knight f6 check, then he takes and plays at the last moment queen f8.
Okay. Okay. This is bold. So, I mean, he must have thought that Ruifeng blundered, basically, to go for this.
Maybe.
Because he could have just played bishop f8. I mean,
No, well,
that's
yeah,
playable.
but no, well, he figured I'll grab that because he wants to play bishop f8 and it kind of forces white's hand, you know. But what
Yeah.
can white do aside of knight g5? I don't really know.
Yeah, if you don't go knight g5, black's just playing bishop f8. At least knight g5 opens the h file, so you can go king g2, etc.
No, well, yeah, so maybe knight g5 is the only try left.
And after
So
queen
we take
e7,
and we get to that position, right?
and after queen
Bishop
e7,
takes, queen e7. Now, queen f8 is pretty strong threat, you know.
you're right. Still just a rough threat. No time for white to do much.
So now you go that move knight f6, take with the g pawn, queen f8, and play your queen, and play down a piece, basically. But this pawn structure, it's only one pawn, but that pawn on f6 is extremely strong. And try to build up on the h file. Is it possible to play like this?
I don't
I mean, the pawn
think
on f6
so,
is
but
almost as good as a knight, right?
I suppose the knights aren't very great at the moment. But I mean, black has rook to c2, you know, and
No, well, maybe
his
since
own
I'm
play.
have to return with the queen, that I might as well go back to d2. And
Okay.
then try to do that stuff. It's too slow, of course, king g2, but...
Yeah. So in the actual game, he's still thinking after knight e8. So we're thinking maybe just king to g2 here and bishop f8, retreat the queen to d2?
Okay, it's a different approach, but then it doesn't guarantee you this great pawn chain, because black, for example, can play queen e7 or, I don't know, or bishop g7 and just keep you from playing knight f6, and then what?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe just queen e7. It's not the most active move, but eventually... No, you up a piece, you can go bishop g7, maybe even f5 white. I mean, white... To me, okay, white has a choice, you know, he's already down a piece, but at least he can get the structural kind of compensation on the line that we looked at. With the pawn on f6.
Right.
Else, you know, he's just playing for tricks. Maybe there won't be a whole lot of...
Yeah, maybe play the version with the pawn on f6 and after queen f8 bring his queen back to h5 and keep playing there.
You can do that, if you don't mind this rook c2.
Yeah.
The problem with queen h5 that even when we bring the rook to the h5, it's just gonna be h6.
Right.
And, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't look good to me.
Yeah. Great
Well, we'll
point.
see what
Right,
he comes up with after his long think. Let's check in on Mamedyarov and Jeffrey.
Well, they both played very reasonable to get this far. Of course, f2 is under strong attack, but Black is dealing with the unpleasant pin on the 6th rank.
Right.
Maybe he's looking to bring this rook to some defended position, such as f6.
F6, probably. Oh, Jeffrey. Plays a fighting move there.
I don't know.
I think Black can take it.
Yeah, well, I think he can take it because rook takes c6, bishop takes f2, rook c4, f5.
I was thinking just take on b2, but you wanted f2.
No, I wanna no. If I take on b2, then I lose b4, right? And then how do I? You told me to play for a win.
Did I? Okay.
Well, you did. You said that Rufang decided to play solidly and took on d5 instead of e5 when he had a chance, which he probably would have played against pretty much anyone else.
Yeah.
No, that means that Mamedyarov is the one who's supposed to
trying to win.
complicate matters, and he wants to unbalance the position and take on f2 instead of b2.
Yeah. Try and carry the team over the finish line if he can win. If he can win as Black here.
Well, actually, he has some threats against the white king, and the b pawn has a long way to go, so it does have some points.
Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe there's something else here, but I'm not quite sure what.
Yeah. And just to show everyone, if we take on b2, then after taking on b2, White would play rook c4, hitting the knight. And then we're left with 3-on-3 on the king side, which is pretty hard to work.
Yeah, there's nothing to work with, basically. You have to agree to a draw.
Yeah. All right, so Alex takes on f2, rook c4, plays f5.
I think you take that pawn on before, but no.
Yeah, but maybe I play knight d2 first. Trying to reduce the material a little bit. Knight bd2.
So we're gonna... No, he took on before. Maybe
all
he
this
was
has
afraid
happened?
of playing down a pawn.
Okay.
After knight d2, maybe Black would trade and play bishop e3 and then try to protect the b pawn. Okay, he took on before, fine.
Okay.
Well, he's not getting mated yet. Black needs two moves. Rook e8, bishop a7, and then he goes knight g3 mate. But no, it's not there yet.
Not there yet.
So bishop e3, it's a good way to start, but king e2.
That helps get out of the mating net, doesn't it?
Yeah, getting out of that mating net instantly. And also possibly preparing that knight d2 to trade something. Interesting is bishop f4. It feels like that Black is somewhat better here. Just the b pawn is not a factor yet.
Yeah, it's not a factor, but there's really reduced material. I'm
That's
still
true.
feeling like it's in the drawing area or zone or whatever.
Probably. So, for example, if knight g3 here, then maybe White can play king f2,
Yeah.
g5, and then maybe h4.
G5. Oh, yeah, I see.
I'm trying to undermine it. I'm a little bit afraid of leaving the black pieces that close to the king, considering that he wants to go some kind of rook somewhere
Mm-hmm.
on the E or C file, and there could still be mating nets, like if the rook comes from C1 to F1. But now Mamedyarov
Yeah.
plays knight takes D2. It must be relief for white. But maybe indeed there was nothing.
Yeah.
Now I don't like rook takes F4. Or maybe it's okay, you have G4. I was a little concerned that the rook may be cut off.
Could be cut off after knight e4 and be stuck here.
But probably G4.
But if G4 trades off some more material, it might be all
no,
right.
G4, G5, and then there is knight G3 check.
Oh.
No, that is the... Okay, so look out.
Yeah.
Knight D2 is a better choice. G4 would be a huge blunder on account of G5.
Yep, that's the kind of thing to watch out for.
So now he cleared out some critical square F3. So now they're just playing for a draw. Okay, fair enough. Draw is...
Okay, there it is.
It's a good result.
That's a draw. Well, Jeffrey played for it, but it still wasn't that easy to get.
Well, the question is what's happening in this game between Rufang and Naroditsky.
Yep.
Also, Rufang, just trying to make best out of his blunder and just playing like nothing happened.
Yeah, just still contesting the C file and maybe probing on the king side.
He wants to take that pawn on F7. It should be protected. Question is with the rook or with the queen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe rook a7 is nice.
Yeah, because this knight G6, it's nothing. Even if you get your queen to F6, it's still nothing. No, but he plays this. He first traded. He didn't want to lose control over the F6 square. Maybe it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And does Ruiz have enough for the piece to play on the C file? I don't think so.
I personally don't think so. I think black is totally winning here.
Yeah, they're gonna play rook c7 and.
Okay, so he plays
presumably
this.
Win the game. So I think is he looking at trading knights and then playing queen h5?
No, well, black will have time to play bishop g7 and eliminate that thing before the attack comes against. Besides, h6 would always protect. So I don't know.
By the way, as far as how the match is going to go, I think it's significant to note that Dictator Chirilla is up a bishop against Conrad Holt. So that looks very good for San Jose to have that extra piece over there.
So they get into 7.5 points.
And they've got an extra piece over here between Naroditsky and Ruifeng. So the hackers are looking really good this round. They do need to get to 8.5 to win the match, people. If they go 8-8, the Destiny take it. But they've got very good positions here on boards 2 and 3.
Okay. What about board 4?
Board 4.
Extra pawn for the
extra
hackers.
Pawn for the hackers. Oh my goodness! So they're ahead like material on every single board. They're looking at maybe a big 4th round.
I think Dallas, needs needs a miracle.
Yeah, they kind of need a London situation here, right? They need something like what happened with the London teams who were down like 1 million in the 4th round.
So in the meantime, Rufang.
Oh, Naroditsky played rook c7 in response to knight f6. The rook on c1 was hanging, so he traded rooks instead of knights.
Yeah, but in this situation, if white plays h5 immediately, then the black knight has the time to come around, right?
What about knight takes h7? Just calculate that for me for a second.
Well, white calculated just has been played.
Oh, it was played?
Yeah,
All right.
good eye, Well, certainly inaccurate play from Naroditsky to let this happen. Why did he have to do this? I have no idea.
I have no idea, but it looks like he just
This whole
lost two
thing about this
pawns.
rook a7 and surrendering the c file, it just felt wrong. And now, well,
Well, I think Rufang has at least a draw now. If not better.
well, with the disappearance of the h pawn, it's just too much, to allow white to come back with the knight. Either way, f6 or g5. White
Right.
will look opinion. Simple.
Like if black plays something like queen e7 here, white can play knight g5 and then h5 and just keep pressing with all of that.
Yeah, but how to make a draw? Say take on h7, right?
See, this knight h7, Alex, this is like the kind of thing that happened for London today against Amsterdam and against Khan. I mean, just really lucky stuff.
So f5.
Okay, f5.
No, right. So now this looks desperation. He invites the knight to come to f6 and then the queen to h5.
Yeah, I think it's
like
got to
he
be
just
this knight
played it
here.
because he was okay. What is going on?
His idea is queen h5, king g7.
Oh.
So knight g5 instead. And now if he plays like king g7, white might actually put their queen on c3, looking at queen c6 as well as queen c7. Oh, no. He just checks him. Okay, so that could be...
But check is...
I think he's just going back to f6.
Well, yeah, going back to f6. Now, for sure, Rufang will play for a win here.
He's got to play on because of the match situation. Also, Naroditsky's...
He'll play on, just because.
Just because, okay.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't have an advantage. Actually, this f5, I underestimated it. Indeed, it's a pretty good defensive play. So the queen comes to h5 just to threaten queen h6. Okay.
All right, something must be done about that threat. I agree. So it's got to be a queen move.
But yeah, you can go to e7 because then queen h6 is not so good. On d7, the queen is protected. Different fork with different knight, but no.
Yep. So he could go to e7 here.
Yeah, he could.
Plausible move. I mean, e6 could use some defense, so that much
he went to
sense.
h8. Well, that doesn't seem very healthy. And immediately comes this shot.
Wow. Another piece, huh?
Another one, yeah. No, if you let him... So knight c7 is absolutely not good. Queen d7.
Mm-hmm.
Or to put his queen on h8, that is... Just think about if one of the black knights has to go to f8, that means that the black queen will never have a move.
Like if I play knight to f8 here, this queen is actually trapped.
Yeah, so...
Okay. Wow, he just quickly went for that knight e6 thing, and Naroditsky's thinking, does he have queen c8 as a move here?
He went knight...
He played my knight f8 move. Oh, he doesn't want to draw. Of course not.
He doesn't want to draw, yeah, so he takes more pawns. Well, queen h7 was not so great because of queen f6 and knight e7.
Anything could happen here with this time situation, my goodness.
No, but now there's queen g6, right?
Mm-hmm.
So finally the attack is over.
Yeah, he got his queen out of the corner. That's great. White might have wanted to trade queens. These black pieces are going to come out now.
Good strategy. Grab pawns, don't be afraid.
You think he's going to take the a pawn here?
Yeah, because h7 protected. Well, somehow white needs to get the queen to g8.
All right.
Show me how it's done.
How do you get to g8?
Queen b7 and queen f7.
d2 to g5. Can you tell me how to get to g8?
Okay, that's it. He got to g8. Game is over.
Uh-oh. So Danya didn't find the d2 to g5 route. They each had to race their queens to g8, right?
Well, somehow, but it was not possible. Maybe it wasn't possible after queen b7.
Queen d2. Queen f7. Queen g5.
Or queen d2, queen g5.
Yeah.
Well, now spoken like a true defender.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we stole a very important pawn. And now, well,
wow.
Queen d2 would probably win the game for black.
So the match is on again. The match is on again. So
right.
we've got 6 seconds over here. Chirilla just drew his game up a piece. I don't understand how, but let's watch the last game.
Well, because somehow, Holt found this sacrifice. And I don't know. Well, I don't know what. No, he was down a piece before. He found a way to threaten mate, and so there was no way to get out of it.
So actually, in a must-win situation, the hackers are carried by the win by their board 4, Ivan.
Ivan won. Okay, Ivan care. Okay, so what's the final score? Okay, so the hackers
8.5, 7.5, just barely. And it looks like the surfers have just put their match out of reach as well.
Let me see.
We didn't see it because we were watching the ending of that, but we didn't see Melik's last game. But it looks like the surfers just got to 8.5.
Yeah. Well, they did look like a better team today, but the problem with the Ospreys was Stu Koppin. I mean, obviously anybody can have a bad day, but he really didn't. He won that long game against Melik, but before that, as the leader of the team, he didn't score. He lost both games against lower-rated players, right?
Yeah.
Stu Koppin.
Yeah, he lost his first 2 rounds against the lower-rated players.
So that's unacceptable, obviously, for top player, So that was the key.
So they're still playing here,
but playing for pride now. So they still have a couple of games left over there, and Vasquez is trying to find compensation for a pawn against Michael Brown. He has it, and he can actually win the pawn back, and probably he may even be slightly better here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking bishop e6, maybe more than slightly.
Bishop takes e6?
Why not?
Queen takes?
The knight hangs on e4. Yeah, okay, I didn't do this right. All right, sorry.
Rook d8? Okay. Oh, I see what's going on now. Took me a second. Okay, aggressive h6.
Yeah, h6, it's probably better, Who needs this pawn? Indeed, the threat should be aimed against the king.
This is a pretty big threat. This knight on f6 is struggling here. So bishop to bishop g6 with the idea of just trading on e4.
Well, the problem is that after bishop e6, you can't. If you walk into a check, then you lose the knight on f6 and the queen.
Yeah, on bishop g6, bishop e6 check wins. That's the problem, huh?
I think it's winning for white. I think the whole thing is okay. He finds queen d3. Now this is.
I was looking at this too. So here it's still bishop e6 check, I think. Oh, but then he'll play bishop f7, huh?
Bishop f7 he plays. Yeah. And he's got So I don't think that's the right way of playing this position. So maybe better is to take on d3 and play bishop takes f6.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although it's not so clear because in the endgame, white is losing b2 and maybe even a4. So black can put his.
Well,
Maybe black can somehow keep the king over there.
well,
I
because you're
don't know.
forking the king and bishop with knight f6 check, I think you get black to play the move like king f7, and then you can play knight takes h7.
Yeah, and then I take on b2
And then this h pawn is
knight
hard to
g5 and
stop,
king
right?
g8. And kinda, I don't know. But it's a different line because
Yeah.
instead he took on e6, which we looked at, and now
Okay.
we thought bishop f7 was the only move.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't look at it deeply, but we'll see how this turns out.
Well, there are some dangers, of course. Capture on f7. Oh no, capture on f6 now, and then queen h5. But there is queen g6, right?
Oh, that's
I
cool,
want to play
Alex.
knight takes f6, pawn takes, queen h5.
Yeah,
But I can't quite bring it home because
it's a
of
great
queen g6.
idea. Queen g6 seems to stop you, huh?
No, but I take on g6 and play h7. But now I have two bishops under attack. What
So
nonsense.
black just takes on h7, huh?
Yeah, I
Oh,
have two bishops under attack.
that's so
What a
not
joke.
fair.
Yeah, I can't. I
If
want to
instead
put
of
this
playing
game away.
if
It's
instead
very.
of playing h7, you just play bishop f7, king f7, h7, king g7, bishop f6, king h7, bishop e5.
Extra pawn.
You come out in a fine position, right? With an extra pawn and the a5 pawn on a dark square. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take that.
yeah,
I could. Well,
to
finally, a
play it.
position I can relate to.
Yeah.
You know what? This is the kind of position when you can call me off the bench.
All right,
I'll
I'm
take
clicking
this.
over quickly to Dreev to see how his rook endgame is going against Stukopin. Um, my instinct would be a win for white, but
Mm,
no, maybe not.
well, okay, let me see.
So black's got to go to f3.
Yeah, it's going after the spawns. You need to find them.
Yeah, this h5 was a good defensive move.
Yep.
When I just first clicked there, I didn't see it.
All right. Clearly, the idea has to involve this. So he's gonna do rook g7 now and then f5. Rook g3, f5. Clearly, that's the way.
Gotta try to win on the king side, yeah.
No, well, and that actually wins pretty easily. So that's it is a tricky move because if the white king steps now on the fourth, then it's gonna be rook g4.
Yeah. But Dreev was not about to step onto the fourth, huh?
Dreev plays interesting technical stuff here.
Yeah.
Nah, but that's Dreev, It's king g7.
So here you don't go for the h pawn, right? You just go for your f pawn.
Oh, f5, f5, and it's gonna be. It's just winning.
Yeah.
Well, give check king g7, f6, f7.
Do you go king e7 or g7?
G7, yeah.
Okay.
It's check and then f6, f7. What else do you need? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if Dreev wins this, the San Diego Surfers will score the most points of any team today.
Right?
Yeah.
In the
Okay, so
meantime,
goes to
Vasquez
g7.
has found a way to win a pawn, and he has huge advantage in this position. He should win that game for the Ospreys, but it's too little, too late. As you said,
With queens on.
well, indeed.
Oh, he won a piece too.
Yeah, he won, but just not enough. With Dreev winning.
Yeah. Huh, he didn't play f6.
Well, the way to win this would be f6. You go rook f3, right?
Yeah. But it looks like he played rook g5.
Yeah, but I will win it before rook g5. I'll win it. It's the same idea as Grishuk used to beat Mamedyarov in Grand Prix, recent Grand Prix tournament. So f6, rook f3, right?
Mm-hmm.
King f8, king e6, f7, discovered check, king d7, king g8, king e7, rook g7.
Yeah.
That's the winning mechanism.
Okay.
But of course here, I mean, it probably would have been the only way to win if it wasn't for the h pawns.
Mm-hmm. All right, here comes the f pawn anyway. And
No, but
resignation. And that is round 1 in the books.
Yep.
The San Jose Hackers with an upset. The Destiny were the higher seeded team. So the Hackers with an upset. Let me see.
So what was the key for this match? Okay, for the upset in the Dallas San Jose match. I know we only talking one game, and we already mentioned that the Ospreys, their leaders took up and had a hard time getting into the match. But what about Dallas? Where did they lose their points?
Well, Mamedyarov scored a lot of points, but that was kind of expected. Naroditsky had that lucky win from a bad position against Xiong in round 3.
Yeah,
that was a big.
But then, of course, he lost from a good position and
That was a
possibly
swing.
winning position.
Yeah.
Against Dreev, so.
Yeah.
I think Naroditsky scoring 1 point against just two guys was kind of okay.
Kind of okay, yeah. Not special, not bad. Huh. I mean, maybe all it was, Alex, was that their board 4 won the final match against the other team's board 4. I mean, they only won the match by 1 point.
Okay, so it all came down to this unknown heroes. That's what it is, We talk Mamedyarov and Naroditsky and Rufeng and Dreev.
Right.
But the matches are decided by those unknown soldiers.
Sometimes. I mean, you've got a 2100 FIDE playing white against a 2147 FIDE. He's a 40 rating point underdog or whatever. Anything could happen. If the game were a draw, Dallas would have tied the match 8-8 and advanced. And Ivan won.
Maybe so Ivan's the man, so all right.
Maybe that's what it was.
That's how it is.
I don't know. Close matches, but the Surfers looked quite good today, I think.
The Surfers looked quite good, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry we missed
I
this.
think it was wise that they didn't use Melik too much, because Melik was just heavily involved, obviously, in this. His coaching, teaching, and also working on Chess.com. We had a lot of live shows, and he was saying during our yesterday's show that, okay, this is my one and only season. I just get so terribly tired. Games start late, and he has to work all day, and not just. I mean, it would be better if he had a job, doing something with his hands, right? And then, nighttime, I sit there and play chess. But you study and you teach chess every day, and then somehow, come 6:30 at night, when you should be home enjoying dinner with your wife, they tell you to go and play game 15. That's young man's job. That's why I'm sitting there talking, guys, not playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was the right idea. They should keep Melik in reserve. Indeed.
Okay.
That's the right plan for them.
I mean, if they win the championship or something, it'd be hard for him to just retire and not come back next year, right? I mean, they're doing really well so far.
He retire for sure. He says, I'm retiring, because once is enough,
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
I mean, if I think about the match, I mean, the surfers even left a point or two on the table. Remember, there was a game where Kura was up like 3 pieces, and then he sacked his queen, and then he ended up
Yeah,
in a position with
unnecessary for
only
sure.
one piece
And
against 2 pawns, and then he had, and yeah, he had like a mate in one, and
no, they just totally dominated.
yeah,
Well,
they're
I mean,
really the clearly
maybe
stronger.
one moment, if I can point out the key game, that was incredible knight d4 move from Dreev. If
Yeah,
Belarus somehow could take down Dreev, there
yeah,
was still enough left in the match to make it interesting.
that's true.
But then Dreev played this knight d4 out of nowhere,
I
and
think
this
he
is the
scored.
this is the move of the day for me.
Yeah, I think he scored 4-0 today, right? Let's see. No, he had one draw.
He had one draw, but overall excellent. Much better performance
Yeah,
than last time.
one
Well, I
draw,
get
but
some inside information from their camp, saying that Dreev played last week, when he was at the tournament somewhere,
hmm
and he had to get up early and anyway or late, or what I don't know, some time difference. So he wasn't really in best
form last
shape.
week.
That's why he didn't play so well last week. But
Okay.
this week, Dreev looked like Dreev we expect to see.
Really good. Yeah, I agree with you. That night D4 game was a pretty spectacular game. He also won this, board one showdown technically, quite nicely from a totally symmetrical endgame. Um, so yeah, good week.
All
Good week
right.
for him.
Well,
Good week for the hackers. Good week for the surfers.
now, there were questions. Where is St. Louis even? Who eliminated St. Louis? Nobody eliminated
No,
St. Louis.
no.
Well, the way the playoffs work here, that there are teams that got a bye in the first round due to their best record in their divisions. Well, we haven't seen those best teams yet. So now the
Yeah,
stage is set for divisional quarterfinals, if you wish.
yeah.
Right?
And the next matches are, I believe, San Jose against what? I was gonna say. Wait, let me just check.
Oh, Greg is here. He will tell us.
Greg will tell us, but
Yeah, Greg,
I
please
think it
tell
should
us
be
who plays who next in the Pacific.
I think it should be San Jose against Webster and San Diego against St. Louis. I think.
Okay, so California goes against Missouri. Okay, we'll see. Okay, San Jose goes against Webster. That's what Greg is saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I was right about that one, I think.
All right. Oh, well, anyway, we'll come
Cool.
back next week. For
So,
now, we stick to our usual schedule. So we're going to be
yeah.
meeting Wednesdays until the final championship weekend that comes at the last weekend of the month, 25th
Yeah.
and 26th. So for now, just make sure you're here every Wednesday.
So
for
Alex,
the continuation of the
So Alex, I've got one last question for you. A lot of the fans here, if not all of them, have filled out brackets trying to predict all the matches. Do you, having watched today, do you think either of these teams can upset one of the St. Louis teams next week? And which team do you think could do it? Both St. Louis teams will have draw odds next week, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
In case of 8-8, they would eliminate either the hackers or the surfers.
Well, I don't know. I don't really know. Well, I guess maybe the team that has Mamedyarov always has a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to. It doesn't mean that I'm kind of burying the San Diego team.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, to me, like when you have Mamedyarov, then
It's another
you
level.
can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, the guy took down Wesley, so that means something, right?
Yeah. Oh, it definitely means something pretty important in these
possible?
matchups.
How is it possible? Then I remember I was screaming, "Down goes Wesley! Down goes Wesley! Down goes Wesley!"
Yep.
I mean, it's just hard to believe it. Anyway.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We will see. We will see. It's just only 1 week to build up anticipation and get ready for continuation of this exciting playoff.
I think overall San Diego seems kind of like slightly the stronger team. Actually, I thought they performed so well, today. But I think St. Louis is the team that they'll lose to anyway.
Oh, we will see.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Thank you guys.
Till next week.
Yeah. Bye.